burritos, the Mexican pizzas. I think I said burrito. And so much more.
Just created a new dish here. Social taco.
Other side of the tracks.
Oh.
Burrito.
Oh, man.
Love a good old burrito and a margarita. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. It appears that Clemson and FSU is going to be doing much better by lunchtime once it all becomes official. That's one of the big stories that we hope to catch up with Mike Griffith in a couple minutes from the AJC, get his thoughts on it. But it appears that Clemson and Florida State's going to get a little bit what they wanted in regards to all these lawsuits. So we'll see how it all shakes out. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but it appears that the ACC and the parties involved are going to agree to disagree. And it seems, at least from the people that we have listened to and read over the course of the last 24 hours, it seems like that Clemson and FSU's getting what they want. Maybe not to the extent that they want it, but hopefully in their eyes it's going to create a little bit of a dent of the deficit between them and the SEC.
Well, not the kind of precedent that the Commissioner Jim Phillips wants to set, but you don't have a choice here in this matter. You have your two most prized entities when it comes to college football. That's what attracts the most eyeballs, who are demanding more money, and they're obviously unhappy. And what happens when they start rocking the boat than other – my question, Pat, is what other schools – from what other sport try to do this same thing from the ACC?
Yeah.
Well, they say it might not be the lion's share of what FSU and Clemson feel like they deserve college football if it's, I don't know, you throw out another ACC sport where somebody's been dominant. Well, if it's college baseball, if it's college softball, who knows?
Well, there's a few of those schools in that conference that most definitely can afford it. I mean, if they wanted to go the route and try to sue like Florida State and Clemson was trying to, North Carolina, Virginia, you know, those old school programs, they got plenty of money, but they're also very frugal in regards to what they want to spend from an athletic standpoint. So that's why North Carolina, they were sitting on the sideline being very quiet, but they were watching intently what the end result was going to be here. And the word is, as the presidents will meet today before lunch, and then Clemson and Florida State's Board of Trustees, they're going to meet around 11 o'clock. The new structure, which is going to see Florida State and Clemson and any other legacy program in the ACC, if you have good television ratings over a 5-year period, if you have more eyeballs, you have success on the field, that means that you perhaps can get an additional $15 to $20 million a year. We've already heard Florida State say that we're about $30 million behind our SEC brethren over in Gainesville. So we got to make up that ground somehow, or we got to find a way to get out of the conference. So Jim Phillips and the rest of the ACC, they believe that this is a nice little stopgap filler to be able to put them in a position of where the conference survives, and then in the meanwhile, you can give a little bit more money to Clemson and Florida State to try to keep them happy in the ranks.
Well, and that's what you want to do, but ultimately kicking the can down the road, we're going to revisit this in just a couple of years. Yeah,
and here's the other part to this that I want to see when the ink is dried on this paperwork. What exactly does it mean? On3 Sports was reporting last night that the buyout fee, the buyout fee that we had heard before was going to be around $500 million if Clemson or Florida State or anybody else wanted to leave the conference before 2036. Well, a source told On3 last night that a school could pay $200 million to leave the ACC once the settlement goes through. And how about this number? When you get to 2029 and 2030, that number could drop below $100 million to exit the conference.
Wow.
So I think this is a stopgap. I think once you get to 2029 and 2030, then all of a sudden Clemson and FSU and anybody else, they can make a decision. But they got to have a place to go. You know, does the SEC want to expand by 29 or 2030? How about the Big Ten? The Big Ten contract, media-wise, is going to be up at the end of the decade. Joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline, we will talk to him about what this potentially means for the ACC and the rest of college sports, and also dig into what else is going on in the world of college athletics. Mike Griffith joins us from the AJC, DogNation.com. Mike, we were just talking about this big announcement, which could come around lunchtime, in regards to the Clemson-Florida State ACC lawsuit's going to be dissolved. It's going to be a new agreement, settlement terms. It appears, at least right now with what we've been able to see, that it appears that Florida State and Clemson is getting a little bit of what they wanted. Do you think long-term that's going to be able to pacify them?
Yeah, I do. If they get into one of the quote-unquote super conferences, it sure does seem like it's moving that way, doesn't it, with the super conference thing? I mean, with the guaranteed bids and I guess my thought is, and I don't know if I'm wrong, but, everybody keeps asking, well, what does the SEC want to do or what does the ACC want to do? And, I always circle back and say, I don't really know how much control they have. I mean, ultimately they sign off on it, but isn't it television that's dictating a lot of the direction of where college football is going with how they pay and how much these contracts are going to be worth?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I almost feel like we should be asking ESPN. I remember, gosh, I'm trying to remember the year, maybe around 2010 or 11, but I remember ESPN, I think it was ESPN, saying, just to be clear, we don't have a voice in whether or not there'll be a college football playoff. This isn't us deciding this. And I kind of thought, well, maybe not directly, but if you're offering a lot more money for a playoff and colleges need more money to pay coaches and build, back then it was build facilities, right? Now we're talking about paying players. Who's going to foot that bill ultimately? Well, a lot of that's going to come out of the television rights contract. And therefore, if more teams in a playoff or larger conferences build more value into the product, then that's what these programs are going to have to do. They got to figure out a way to pay everybody. And so to do that, they have to make their product more valuable. And the person that determines that value is the television contract. And that could mean more inventory, or it could mean a more streamlined version of quality football, which leads us back to super conferences.
Well, speaking of inventory, Mike, some SEC programs, national college football programs, doing away with their spring games. What is the sentiment with folks that you talk to in Athens, Georgia, and where do you think the direction will go, not only across the conference but across the country?
Well, I mean, that's another interesting thing because I've always thought, and I'm not the only one. I mean, Vince Dooley told me this, shortly before he passed away. He one time approached the conference about doing intra-squad spring games. So, for example, maybe, a team that's not on your SEC schedule, maybe you split your squad and say Georgia and South Carolina don't play anymore, for example, next year at least. And they say, all right, South Carolina, we're going to send half of Georgia to Columbia, and you send half of your team to Athens, and we're going to have 2 split squad scrimmages against one another and sell tickets. And the idea was to generate revenue. Well, I don't know how much of a television market there would be for spring games. Based on the ESPN coverage plan, I don't see much. I mean, did I hear that the Alabama spring game's not going to be on television for the first time in, I don't know, a long time, something like that?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, to me, that's really curious, right? I don't understand that. I don't understand why there wouldn't be value in that. I don't understand why someone wouldn't want to cover that. Knowing the fan base, knowing the interest in Alabama football, I think it's really curious. I don't understand, especially that time of year. Like, what are we watching on TV instead? Right? I mean, I'm a big advocate of, women's softball and college baseball, but I would think as many people would want to watch a spring game. I guess I could be wrong. And if not, why couldn't we make it where these games are monetized in some way, shape, or form? And the way to do that is with competition. And people might say, well, that's awful silly. It doesn't really count. I'd say, well, isn't that the case with all the bowl games outside the playoffs? These are new world problems, so why not new world solutions? If anything, a lot of fans may be interested to see who the next great players are. Now, as far as why they're canceling them, they don't want to get their players pilfered or identified or whatever. That's part of it. I think part of it's they don't really want to show anything. I think part of it's coaches kind of throwing their weight around. I think that's temporary. I think eventually coaches are going to be put in their place. I think eventually, what's best for the conference and what generates the most revenue is going to be the music everybody dances to.
Talking to Mike Griffith, DogNation.com, also covers the SEC for the AJC. So the last time we talked last week, there's a lot of conversation about the college football playoff managers meeting, and really nothing really earth-shattering came out. It's kind of like we're kicking the can down the road for another meeting in regards to the conversation, maybe changing the 2025 format. Definitely, we all know 2026 and beyond is going to be changed. From the timeline of the SEC and that 9-game conference schedule, do you believe it's going to be pretty quiet on that front until maybe Destin, or do you think clandestine meetings behind the scenes with the ADs and the other members of the SEC are going on with Greg Sankey now discussing that 9-game conference schedule?
Well, I think the commissioner is always in tune with all the schools. I don't think it's any more now than ever. I don't think Greg Sankey just plays golf in between meetings. I think he's constantly in communication, and there's schools that are constantly in communication with him or some of the other officers there at the SEC office. I think they're very in tune with the league. I think that's why the league has been so successful. I think we're at a crossroads right now. I don't think athletic directors are sitting on their hands or too busy going out to the baseball and softball games to be thinking big picture. I mean, I don't know. Is this a crisis that we face right now? I kind of think it is. I think we're at a crossroads for college football with a lot of, a lot of movement underneath us, right? The continents are breaking off. These aren't tremors anymore. We're seeing real change. We're seeing the landscape change before our eyes with what's happening with these Florida State Clemson talks and what's happened with the expansion of the playoff and talking about guaranteed bids and new television contracts and 9 games instead of 8, which is going to affect other parts of the schedule. And now we're talking about spring games and how they might be changed. So I would say yes. I don't think there's anything clandestine about them. I think these are every year Sankey's talking to the presidents and ADs and coaches about issues that come up that need to be dealt with. These are just a lot more impactful and probably more visible than maybe a lot of those in the past.
There's one coach in the SEC that's always good for his soundbite, and that is South Carolina football coach Shane Beamer. He is going to be on Capitol Hill today, and he's already made a statement saying that if Congress does not act now, college sports is going to be destroyed by never-ending litigation and conflicting state laws. And obviously he's talking about the conflicting NIL state laws, so he wants the feds to step in. Do you think it's ultimately going to take the feds to make some kind of change here, some type of law to be able to get this wrangled in from a college sports aspect?
Congressional oversight, that's the term, right?
Yep.
And I suppose if we're talking about some sort of collective bargaining agreement, which is kind of what we're trying to get to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That may require congressional oversight because we're applying the old and now defunct amateurism laws, which didn't stand up in court. So you got to kind of have a way around that, and that way around it would be congressional oversight for a collective bargaining agreement. I'm just a sports writer, right? I keep a scorebook and stats, and I can tell you who blocks and hits and all that kind of stuff. Kind of feel like I'm back in the 90s. I'm having 1990s NCAA investigation flashbacks to Alabama and Auburn when
those were fun times, Mike.
Had to go back and use my journalism in the law classes that summer semester at Michigan State and apply what I learned in that class. And I kind of feel like that's what's happening with today's college football world with, all the legalese and legal speak. And like I already tell everybody, I gotta bring up thesaurus every time I hear Greg Sankey speak, the professorial commissioner. I got to go back and look up a few words that he uses. He gets into those 4 and 5 syllable words, but yeah, big picture wise. And look, for the fans, it's terribly frustrating because they're not tuning in on Saturdays to, understand the ins and outs of how this money is going to get broken down or what the Title IX implications may be. But we understand that whatever agreement comes about is going to have an impact on non-revenue sports and to some degree women's sports. We're still trying to figure out where Title IX fits into all this, if it does. How applicable is it? But I think Beamer's going in the right direction. I think Nick Saban's gone in that direction. Maybe different wording, but Nick told us that this wasn't going to be able to stand early on. A lot of people suspect that's why he got out. I don't know. I still don't think he's done. You guys know I'm still holding the candle for Nick Saban to be back on the sideline. I really want to see it as much as I enjoy him on game day. But back to the point, yeah, I mean, I think that this is probably what it will take, and I think Shane is, one of the better communicators and one of the better influencers in the SEC. I think he's got the background for it. I think he embraces this sort of thing. I'm not sure this would be Kirby Smart's idea of a fun day, because I don't think he can boss anybody around in Washington, D.C. like he can in Athens. But I think that Shane's the guy for it, and I think this could be the start of a solution.
Mike, you've covered the SEC for over 3 decades. I'm switching to basketball, but right now, if you have to place a bet on a team from the SEC cutting down the nets and winning the national title, or taking a team from the field, which one are you going with?
Oh, yeah, and I'm taking the SEC. I mean, of course. I mean, it's a historically good conference, and, Bruce Pearl has his magic going. You can't say enough about this guy. Covered him 6 years every day. Got to know him extremely well at Tennessee. Still know him extremely well. He's still the same guy. Can still dial that number. He'll still pick up. Bruce is a real guy. He's a real man. He's a real coach. Really happy for him. I'm happy for Auburn. I'm happy that college basketball has gotten to see what a great coach Bruce Pearl is, the way he's been able to build a program. I'd probably take Auburn against the field right now. They just seem to keep getting better and better and better. There is something to be said for peaking too soon, and certainly I've seen that happen with other great teams before. A lot of people laughed at me, but I still remember one of those Tom Crean Indiana teams that just looked unbeatable to me in 2013-14. They were incredible, and they got matched up against the tough Syracuse team in that zone and, went down the tubes. All it takes is one bad day. Yeah. And I guess we can say that for college football now too, right? I mean, Georgia had one bad day against Notre Dame. And I don't nothing against Notre Dame, but usually when a team doesn't have a drive that goes inside your 25-yard line, you're probably going to win. But you usually don't give up 6 points off a turnover at your 14 in a kickoff return and turn it over inside an opponent's 10. But that's the nature of tournament sports. It's unpredictable. Again, I'm partial to Bruce because I covered him, and I know what it takes to build a program at Auburn, having covered that program in basketball. I'm just happy that now the world can see that, Bruce Pearl's always been a great coach. Obviously, he had some things go against him early, some of his own doing, but I think he's one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. I don't know anybody else that could just take Auburn basketball off the mat and led them to a consensus number 1 ranking. I can't think of another coach of this era that would have, 1, taken the job, and 2, been able to put Auburn basketball number 1 like Bruce Pearl has.
Well put. He is Mike Griffith. You can find his work at the AJC and also dognation.com at Mike Griffith32 there on Twitter. Mike, we always appreciate the time. Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
You as well. Mike Griffith joining us, as all of our guests do, on the Buyers Right hotline for all of your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner.
I've gotten a lot of texts from folks that have taken the opportunity to get by courtesy GMC and Trustful and check out the Sierra AT4X. I've been telling you that you're not going to find a better deal anywhere, and I mean anywhere in the Southeast, when it comes to this GMC product. The Sierra AT4X, the front and rear electronic locking differentials, a combination not offered in any competitor in its class. It's got 16-way power heated and ventilated front seats with massage feature. It's got the AEV stamped steel front bumper with front winch capability. I can go on and on, but here is the key to the AT4X. Other dealerships do not have the inventory as deep as courtesy GMC and Trustful when it comes to this vehicle, or the outstanding pricing. I'm talking about $11,000 off MSRP, multiple to choose from. You need to get by and take a look at this incredible vehicle like I did. It is incredible. The price is even better. $11,000 off MSRP. Nowhere can touch this price. Go online, courtesybirmingham.com. Compare the prices to other GMC dealerships, not only here around Metro Birmingham, the state of Alabama. How about the Florida Panhandle, Georgia, You're not going to be beat. Courtesy GMC in Trussville. That's courtesybirmingham.com.
We got more to get to. Auburn with a big basketball game tonight. We'll tell you what Vegas is saying at the top of the hour. Nick Kelly, who covers the Alabama Crimson Tide. More takeaways from Alabama's first practice, first spring press conference from Kalen DeBoer. All of that, the Tuesday edition of Three Man Front. We're live at Social Taco in Homewood. Don is here, and he's bearing gifts, I think. We'll continue. Three Man Front and Jocks 94.5.
It's 10:25, Jocks 94.5. Welcome back. We are live here at Social Taco. Crowd already starting to gather.
Hello, crowd.
Hello, crowd. It's great to see the crowd. Today is BB's birthday. There will be a BB birthday celebration up here a little bit later. Looks like,
BB birthday signing?
yeah, how about that? Signing documents as we speak. I see a pie. It's not a birthday cake. It's a birthday pie. It's a peach pie.
A peach pie.
Peach pie. Do you like peach pie?
I do not.
I do not care for peach pie myself.
It sounds lovely.
So there's two people that you don't have to worry about getting a piece to.
No. Hope you brought a candle.
Conrad, do you like peach pie?
Okay, he does
More of
have
a cobbler
candles.
guy.
You're more of a cobbler guy?
I've made a peach pie. I made a peach cobbler for somebody one time.
Did you?
I got a recipe. from a
But
guy.
you don't like it.
I don't, but I made it for somebody because that was their favorite. I wanted to see how it measured up. And it did. It was solid. Pretty easy recipe.
Very nice. We were just talking to Mike Griffith from DogNation.com and the AJC. We mentioned that Shane Beamer is on Capitol Hill, and he is giving testimony right now. He's obviously in favor of congressional oversight to try to give some guardrails in regards to the NIL. Here is Shane Beamer moments ago in front of the great senators and representatives in our nation's capital.
And in regards to the new revenue sharing model, I think it's a fantastic thing because, one, it will provide opportunities for all student athletes as well. It will level the playing field, if you will, in a lot of ways, and it will allow all student athletes to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness through revenue sharing and having a piece of what they deserve because of what they bring to our universities.
Not a bad recruiting tool.
No.
When you're in front of the most important people in this country and you're saying that these young people need to get every single dime that is owed to them for what they bring into university. That is a wonderful recruiting tool. Don't you think that will be clipped a few times and put in front of, I don't know how many people actually still recruit high school kids.
Pat, when it comes to recruiting messages, I don't question Shane Beamer. He's done a pretty solid job in Columbia, South Carolina, in getting a lot more talent than I thought he'd ever get.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So that will continue on as everyone believes that under this administration, they're going to be more amenable to possibly changing some rules and laws to try to give some safeguards out there when it comes
Imagine
to
that.
NIL. Yeah. You'll still have your detractors. You'll still have the people that will scream and kick themselves to the door. I mean, Conrad, I'm not trying to turn this into a political show, and maybe Langell knows the answer to this question. I'm not trying to put either one of you on the spot, but I thought I saw this last night. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did the Senate vote and all the Democrats voted against the law that would have gone into effect in regards to
Women and men?
Yeah.
Before I respond, I want to double check, but
A filibuster. That's what they did? Okay. Okay. I saw that late last night as I was heading to bed, and I was just, once again, I'm just like common sense. What?
I was about to say, that one should be a slam dunk, in my opinion.
it says that Democrats voted unanimously to block a Republican-led bill Monday evening that would prohibit federally funded schools from allowing transgender athletes from participating in women's sports.
Okay. All right, so I did say that right.
Yes. It is the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act introduced by Senator Tommy Tuberville. And it fell short of the 60 votes needed to advance. So there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know there's probably at least one female politician that voted to block it.
It's unbelievable.
I don't know how we weren't going to get political.
I just want to make sure I saw it right.
Yeah, you did. And I heard it this morning, but I didn't dial into it.
So I want someone to explain, someone that
It's going to take somebody other than me. Or some sensing Conrad. Or you. I don't think any of us have the answers.
I can't explain it. That's just asinine. That's just stupid.
I'm with you.
Okay.
So we got great basketball tonight, though, right?
We do.
Now, so is women playing in this,
I
or
think
is
it's
this men playing against women? Or
Well, currently, Pat,
who's playing in this?
There's two different divisions. You have a women's division and you have a men's division. Now
But there's an asterisk next to the men's and the women's division because obviously you can be whatever sex you want to, and you can play in either one.
Yeah, they even have different rules for each one.
So here's my question. So if a dude wants to play the women's sport, so he's obviously shooting with the smaller basketball?
Mm-hmm. Unless he's Kenny Pickett, he has bigger hands.
I was about to say, we don't know the hand sizes.
We do not. Those can fluctuate.
Okay.
As Jalen found out, as Zan grew from Mobile to the Combine. It happens.
Yeah. Apparently it
Legitimate
happens.
question. Sorry, I didn't have a better answer for you. I have no idea
No,
what is running through the minds of some of these people.
Okay. Just making sure.
When does that thing come back up again?
I don't know. Let's call Coach Tubbs.
Do we get the rematch?
Let's call Tubbs and see what the status is.
I would call our buddy Blackshear.
Yeah. Blackshear will get it done.
He will get it done.
Yeah, he ain't playing around.
Well, he might be. He was going to the sports book last time we talked to him.
Yeah, he might have resigned down there because you probably hit some big sports book.
Probably hit a lot of,
and moved on.
Jackpot.
All right, we are live at Social Taco. We'll get into this ACC settlement with Clemson and Florida State. It's going to be made official here within the next hour or so. Some interesting perspective. Ira Schafel, he was doing a podcast earlier this morning. We will get into what he says, and I think it's a victory for Clemson and Florida State, at least on the short term, maybe not long term for the rest of the conference. We'll get into that next on Three Man Front. On the air.
I guess we are.
Oh, okay.
Hey, welcome back. We're live from
making
Social
sure.
Taco here in Homewood. It's a Taco Tuesday.
Do you remember this video when it came out?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Did I respond in an appropriate way when I said, yeah, yeah?
We're live at Social Taco. We're going to be here until 2 o'clock. It is BB's birthday. She's
Hey,
first
she's not
lady.
here.
She's not here yet.
No. I'm sure that she'll be radiant, dressed elegantly,
Always is.
as always.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we'll get the Melania Trump outfit that she wore
Yeah, she wore that back around the
post-inauguration.
Mhm.
Or was
I think it was like the week after.
Was it? Yeah, that's
inauguration.
right.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Gave her some time to put it together.
Conrad, I know we shouldn't do this on the air, but just let me know when you have that audio ready that I just sent you.
I will. Molly, you can buy some time while I get that ready.
All right,
Yeah.
sounds good. Well, there's still a lot of flu and sickness going around, so make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. It removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those that cause virus, is 100 times more effective than standard air filters and 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. So go find a dealer near you at Trane.com.
So it should be official a little bit later on in regards to the ACC Clemson Florida State settlement. All parties are going to put their pens down. The lawyers are going to go ahead and get their final paychecks from the schools in the ACC, and it appears that everybody's going to play nice for at least the next 3 or 4 years.
What do you think that dinner's like tonight with those attorneys?
Oh, are you kidding me?
All the wine, all the steak,
It's going to be
all the fancy cigars.
Yeah, we're going to hear from Irish Chaffel in just a second. He did a podcast this morning, kind of detailing from the Florida State perspective what they're going to be getting out of this settlement. We were just talking a little politics before we went to the bottom of the hour break in regards to, I guess, the blocking of Senator Tommy Tuberville's bill in the Senate last night about transgender athletes, as all the Democrats voted to block it so it cannot move forward.
The Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act.
There you go. So a little bit more work that Coach Tuberville and the rest of the folks there in the Senate's got to do to make the common sense law a law. But anyway, another thing that has been going on this week is the 25% tariffs that have now been laid out by the U.S. administration against Canada and Mexico. Well, just a couple of minutes ago, Governor DeSantis of the state of Florida. Now, this isn't Leland Live. This is three-man front, but we are tying this into sports. Take a listen to what DeSantis said about the number of tourists that have come into the state of Florida and about the Canadians wanting to boycott the state.
Flock to our state and investment to Florida. Flock to our state and investment to Florida surge. We continue to set tourism records. 2024 saw more than 142 million visitors come to the state of Florida. This includes 3.3 million visitors from Canada. That's not much of a boycott in my book. Maybe they wanted to get a glimpse of what a Stanley Cup winning hockey team actually looks like.
Hey!
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah!
That's what we're talking about.
A
Yep.
boot. Ron DeSantis.
I love that. You never would have thought in a million years that the Florida governor would be bragging about a Stanley Cup.
Well, not only that, but Ron DeSantis, going back to the college football playoff, when he wanted to use $1 million of taxpayer money, well, what was it he wanted to do? Launch an investigation, and then you got the Attorney General on board?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give him credit. He stays out there. He knows what the constituents, what they're following, what they're into. That's a good line.
I thought it was just funny.
It's a really good line.
That's a lot of people visiting Florida. 142 million. Wow.
Yeah. You've been on South 65 heading down there.
Yes.
You get a lot of Indiana.
Yep.
Get a lot of Ohio. Get a lot of Michigan. A lot of those folks coming down.
Irish Chaffel, who is the
to the Gulf of America.
Yeah, Gulf of America. Let's just go ahead and just do all politics,
Why
right?
not? Just light it.
Irish Chaffel, who writes for warchant.com, a frequent contributor to this program. He did a podcast this morning when he was asked in regards to what this settlement possibly means in regards to Florida State moving forward.
Those numbers, I think, were very far apart. You know, as you remember in FSU's lawsuit, they were talking about, they might be required to pay $570, $600 million to get out of the conference. That number, as I was hearing in recent weeks, was being whittled down. And now ESPN, the number they put out there now is if Florida State does want to leave the conference, it could drop down to around $100 million or less by 2030, which is a huge difference from what it was, and getting out way before 2036. And then in the short term, the schools that have the bigger brands, which is something Florida State was arguing for before they filed their lawsuit, they're now going to be getting upwards of $15 to $20 million a year out of that TV pie, more than not necessarily more than those other schools, but they're going to be getting an additional $15 to $20 million more a year, while the other schools in the conference are going to be getting much less. And I think some of them are going to be taking less than they've been taking so far. The exit fee and departure date may have shrunk, and then you also are going to be getting more money per year in the short term. But I think, from a standpoint of what FSU was asking for at the beginning, they're getting a lot of it here in this new deal.
So you just heard Ira kind of lay out the significant drop in the exit fee, okay? Well, this just came out moments ago. Andrea Edelson, who is a frequent contributor to the ACC network, and I promise you, she has seen what this contract is going to look like. She just tweeted out the following: more details emerging from settlement between ACC, FSU, and Clemson via sources. Yeah, our sources, ESPN. Exit fee is expected to drop by $18 million each year through 2029-2030. After that, the exit fee drops to $75 million, and an exiting team will retain its media rights. Are you kidding me? That is an unbelievable win for Florida State and Clemson and anybody else that wants to leave the ACC. But obviously the ACC felt like they had to do that. $75 million to get out in 2029, 2030.
Is this a case of just reading the room? You've been advised, put this at this number?
That is staggering. And you get to retain your media rights. Remember when all this started? It was like you are in this conference till 2036. You cannot leave. And if you want to leave before 2036, it's going to cost you anywhere between $360 and $500 million to leave the ACC. Now it is going to, if you can withstand and you can put up with your neighbors for the next 4 to 5 years, at the end of the decade, for $75 million. Don't you think that there's probably more? FSU Dave's got $75 million that he'd write a check right now for him to get out of the ACC.
Well, you're just hoping you're buying enough time.
Yeah. Get yourself in a college football player for 2.
And if you're Jim Phillips, you're retired by that time.
Yeah, what does he care? He's out.
Honestly, that's probably how he's looking at it.
I mean, I'm shocked. I'm stunned. Good for Clemson and Florida State.
Yeah.
I mean, now again, I don't know where they're going to go.
Do you celebrate this at ACC meetings?
I guarantee you in Tallahassee and Clemson, South Carolina, they're celebrating.
But
today.
if you're Jim Phillips and you're getting up, you're addressing the room, it's like, well, this year, proud to announce that we have no current litigation.
Well,
Any of our member institutions going on?
The multiple people that we've talked to that has covered this in depth, whether it's been Matt Baker from The Athletic, whether it's Ben Portnoy, who, by the way, is going to join us at 12:30. All these folks that we've had on the program over the course of the last 6 to 8 months when all this really came to a head, they've all told us that ultimately folks are going to get in a room and they're going to settle it. And it took a little bit longer than I thought.
Yeah.
But once again, lawyers are undefeated, and those billable hours were incredible, and they kept this train rolling as long as they possibly could. And so finally they decided, we can cut down on this, and that's what we need to do. But I'm just telling you, this number is just it's unbelievable to me to think that $75 million at the end of the decade, and on top of that, you get to keep every single media right.
Clicking their heels. They got to be in Tallahassee and Clemson, South Carolina.
Don.
We continue live from Social Taco here in Homewood. Nick Kelly, as Pat just mentioned, he's going to join us at the top of the hour. We'll talk Alabama as Nick covers the Crimson Tide. Nathan King from Auburn Undercover at noon. We'll preview the Tigers' big matchup as they take on Texas A&M tonight in College Station, a game you can hear right here on Jocks 94.5. And Ben Portnoy, as Pat mentioned, at 12:30, talking all of this good news, I guess, if you're some in the ACC like Clemson and Florida State, maybe other member institutions down the road, maybe not if you're Jim Phillips. But the legal team won. Those guys on retainer, guys and gals on retainer, they win all the time.
They sure do.
We'll continue live from Social Taco in Homewood. The doors are about to open. Hopefully you'll join us, Landry and Pat, on Jocks 94.5.
It is 10:49, Jocks 94.5. We're live at Social Taco. Come on by and see us. We'll be here until 2 o'clock. Grab some lunch. Should be a great crowd as always. Come on by and see us. It's a beautiful day. I know the patio was packed last week. It's going to be packed again. We're upstairs from the Taco Terrace.
Yeah, and now that we have nicer weather outside, you get the patio weather. You got brunch on the weekends. Don't forget about the Bottomless Tapas brunch, 10 to 2:30 on Saturday, 10 to 2:30 on Sunday. Some of the great favorites that you get every single day here at Social Taco, but also some other favorites that they feature on that Bottomless Tapas menu. Again, brunch on Saturday and Sunday here at Social Taco, 10 to 2:30 each day. Make sure you come into the square and join them.
So Auburn basketball tonight on Jocks 94.5 as they travel to College Station, Bryan, Texas, taking on the Fighting Aggies. Auburn carries a 6-game winning streak into its last road game there at Reed Arena. The Tigers clinched its 5th SEC regular season championship in school history on Saturday at Rupp Arena. This season is the first time in program history that Auburn has won at Alabama and Kentucky in the same season. The Tigers won at Kentucky for just the 3rd time all-time, and the first time since 1988 it snapped a 20-game losing streak to the Wildcats. Auburn is trying to become just the 2nd SEC team to go undefeated on the road in SEC play in the last 10 seasons. The first was, the first one in the last 10 years was LSU back in 2019 when they did it. So with the win, Auburn could set a new program record with its 16th SEC win. It would be its 28th regular season win. A 16th SEC victory would be tied for 6th most in league history. Auburn is also looking to extend its program record SEC road winning streak to 10 games. Meanwhile, the team they're playing, Texas A&M, they have been scuffling as of late. Wade Taylor, he goes, so does the team. He's averaging 15 points per game. The graduate senior guard, he has been hot and cold over the last month of the season. But this A&M team, they lead the country in averaging 15.86 offensive rebounds per game and boasts the 9th best defensive efficiency according to KenPom. So, with that being said, that might be why you see Auburn only as a 5.5-point favorite tonight on the road.
Yeah, is Auburn going to be able to knock down shots like we got from Miles Kelly and we got from Denver Jones in previous games tonight? You know that Buzz Williams, they're going to play tough defense. They're going to try to make it a rock fight as much as they can, a lot like what you saw between Tennessee and Auburn, and you traditionally get between those two teams tonight. But Auburn, a 4.5-point favorite.
Oh, it's 4.5. Okay. It was 5.5 when I saw it earlier this morning.
Yeah, so it's moved a point within the last hour.
Wow.
It's a tough game.
Yeah, the Aggies have the best record against Auburn. They're 5-2 of any SEC team since 2019 and 2020. That was Buzz Williams' first season in Aggie land. So they've had a pretty good run, 5-2 against Auburn.
Pat, I remember one game. It was Auburn and College Station, and it seemed like it was an inordinate amount of fouls that were called in that game.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And I think Texas A&M got all the calls.
I remember that.
They shot a crazy number of free throws, a lot like
it was just a couple years ago, because Bruce went crazy.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know if he got teed up.
I know it happened to Alabama and Fayetteville
against Arkansas. You mean
that
Knoxville?
Was in the last couple of years. Well,
maybe
Knoxville
Conrad.
too, but Fayetteville there was a crazy discrepancy where one team shot 40-something free throws and the other team was in the teens.
Well, it's crazy because remember a few weeks ago when Vanderbilt took on Auburn in Nashville. Vanderbilt's got a winning record all time against Auburn in basketball, which I would lose any bar bet if someone came up to me.
But it all gets lost just how bad Auburn was.
Yeah,
now,
that's true.
Without a couple of Cliff Ellis years, the Lebo years were non-existent. Tommy Joe Eagles, that was non-existent. Barbie, that was horrible.
Tommy Joe Eagles?
Yeah. So other than Sonny Smith and Cliff Ellis in the late 90s and early 2000s, which you got, that pretty much has been Auburn basketball.
So think about this. The Aggies hold a 15-7 lead in the series with Auburn since 1962, and they're 12-5 since they became members of the SEC. They've won 12 out of 17 games between those two schools since they joined the conference.
Wow.
That's just shocking to me. But I guess just recent memory of how well Bruce Pearl has turned this program around.
Well, And if you're Auburn, there's plenty of other history that you're playing for, whether it's being undefeated on the road in conference play, whether it's only having one loss if you can finish 17-1 with a win tonight and a win over Alabama on Saturday, but just winning, continuing to win. And that's what you worry about at this point in the season. If a team loses a game, how do they respond? We've seen teams that have not played well down the stretch. Take UCLA just a couple of years ago. You take Alabama last year. They've been able to go on and make runs. That's why March Madness is just so much fun to watch as a fan for me, because you don't know what you're going to get game in and game out.
Here's some other historical numbers that will get you and scratch your head. Bruce Pearl's 4-10 as a head coach against Texas A&M.
So I did, Landrum, I did find the game you were talking about, if you want to go back to February of 2023, where Auburn went to College Station and lost 83-78. Auburn shot 14 free throws. Texas A&M shot 39 free throws.
Oh, wow.
That was the game.
Hey, if you got the box score, did Pearl get teed up?
Let's see. Seeing if it doesn't look like it right here.
Okay.
But 39 free throws compared to 14
14
for Auburn, and they still only won by 5.
I think that was the reason that Bruce Pearl and Auburn fans, they were so upset, is Auburn had that game. But, heck, you give another team 25 free throws extra.
Kidding me? Yeah. Surprised they only won by 5.
I was about to say, Auburn shot better from the floor, better from three-point, and then they had 25 less free throw attempts, but they had less turnovers, about the same rebounds. So, yeah, I think that was a rough game there.
It can happen.
Sure can.
Draw a bad crew on the wrong night.
Nathan King will join us at 12 noon. He was there yesterday for the Bruce Pearl press conference. We will get his thoughts on tonight's game, and you can listen to the game right here on Jocks 94.5.
People asking if Denver Jones is going to play, and they initially thought it was a bone bruise, but does not look like he is going to be available tonight. So you see a lot more Tahad Pettiford. Maybe you see more J.P. Pegues, or they do some different things at the point, but not expected that Denver Jones is going to start tonight. You need him certainly down the stretch.
I did see that it's a Bruce Pearl said yesterday it's a soft tissue thing, so it's not actually a bone bruise like they thought it was. So it seems like, he might miss tonight and maybe even the Alabama game, but he should be good for postseason.
Sounds like ice and ibuprofen.
Bingo.
All right, we continue. Nick Kelly, who covers the Alabama Crimson Tide, joins us next live here from Social Taco and home where the doors are opening. We hope to see you. Make this your Tuesday destination. Three-man front, Jocks 94.5.
Welcome back in. It's hour number 2, three-man front. Pat Landrum live here at Social Taco. Molly will join us here in just a little bit. Conrad back high atop Red Mountain, making sure we stay on the air and rocking and rolling on this Tuesday. Thanks for making us a part of your day. Download the Jocks 94.5 app. You can take us along wherever you go, whether it's audio, you want to watch us. We're video streaming right now on YouTube and on the app live from Social Taco.
I want to tell you about our friends at Mystic Beverage. They make them in Blount County, Alabama. It's carbonated sparkling water, but it's infused with cannabinoids and all kinds of goodness, from the Nirvanic watermelon flavor to the Lift Blend, which I love so much. It's got the green coffee bean extract that will pick you up if you need a pick-me-up in your workday, or maybe when you get home and you need to spend time with the family or the kids, or you've got events planned later that day. Lift is perfect for that. Also, if you want to go with a High Hills Delta 9, there's assorted products, all kinds of great flavors. It's not sweet. There's no sugar. Very few calories. Southern berry, the mango, the watermelon, you can go with that as well. Don't forget about the blood orange. MysticBeverage.com. Find them at your local Piggly Wiggly and made right here in Blount County, Alabama.
So we've got so much stuff going on today. Live streams everywhere. Besides Three-Man Front being live streamed on YouTube, you've got Shane Beamer. He is talking about NIL in front of all the folks in Congress. Now you've got the Board of Trustees. They're having their meetings at Florida State and Clemson, South Carolina, trying to vote on this ACC settlement. So much to go on. So that's why we decided we're going to talk to Nick Kelly from AL.com, who covers the Alabama Crimson Tide. Nick, hope you're doing well on this Tuesday. And I understand you got to rub elbows with Conrad Van Order yesterday. I know you felt like you were in high cotton.
It was a pleasure. A surprise and a pleasant one, and hopefully it didn't scare him away. So,
well, my goodness, I don't know what happened. Maybe they heard that he was coming down there while they made you guys stand outside for an hour. Was that a general operating procedure?
He was the problem, really. I didn't want to tell him off air, but I'll say it on air.
Yeah, we don't doubt that in the very least. Okay, so Kalen DeBoer. His first press conference as he kicks off officially season number 2 at the Capstone. Just some of your takeaways from what you heard yesterday. I saw that you made him smile yesterday during his presser. So you're becoming like Ryan Hennessy, how you suck up to the coach like that. I'm just kidding. But what your takeaways?
It was. Well, I figured I'd have a little fun and just try to. I mean, of course, he was expecting a question about the quarterback battle, so I figured I'd take a little different approach and try to have some fun with it. And still got a pretty, the answer we figured we'd get. But just kind of, it seems there definitely seems like a freshness and energy that they are really like down to business. There's been a lot of noise ever since last December about just where this team is at and the future of the program. And I think that I'm sure it's hard to have to kind of sit there and wait and kind of get back to it and try to fix it. I think that they just seem like an eagerness to actually do something about how the way last season ended. And I think just an overall excitement and sharpness. And, of course, it's a common day one or early day thing, but there seems just a good energy that maybe hadn't been there for a bit.
Nick, what did we learn about new offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb and former offensive coordinator Nick Sheridan, and how that dynamic's going to work next season?
Well, first off, Ryan Grubb's rocking a full beard.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you saw those photos, but it's a legit beard. I'm frankly kind of jealous that he was able to that he has the beard that he does. It's pretty legit. And so he's got that going for him. But in terms of football, he's out there. It's real. It's happening. It did happen. He's wearing the crimson. And I think that in terms of dynamic, Kalen mentioned the importance of having your coordinator around your quarterback. So I think he's still going to be working with them. But you have Nick Sheridan as your QB coach, who's got a great connection with them. Of course, he was the primary recruiter for Keelan Russell. And then he also knows the guys who were in the room last year. So he's got those relationships to help them. And he's a former quarterback. Don't forget that. And then you also have a guy in Mitch Dolan who is an offensive analyst who's a former quarterback himself, who's worked with guys like Hainer, Penix, and now he's here. And so you've got that trio. I mean, if you're quarterback, I mean, it doesn't get much better than having those kind of guys working with you. So I think, I mean, these quarterbacks are going to have every chance to succeed, and it's up to them to do that.
Nick Kelly joins us. AL.com covers the Alabama Crimson Tide football, basketball, all things Alabama for AL.com. I know that you were just talking about the quarterback situation, and I know there will probably be some movement once the transfer portal opens back up after spring practice. Do you anticipate that quarterback room could be thinned out a little bit once some things are already established in the spring?
I mean, it's possible. I just think it comes down to when do they name a starter? When do they I mean, how do things progress? Does it become really clear that Ty's the guy, or does it become really clear that someone else is? I think that you could see someone leave, but I think it's part of why we probably won't see some kind of declaration until closer to August. I mean, you look at prior history, Kalen hasn't traditionally named his starting quarterback until the week of the first game. Penix was named a few days before their first game. Jay Kaner was named at Fresno State a few days before the first game. So it's very common to wait until then. And I don't think he's doing it to be completely coy or just to keep all his guys, but they've only got 3 scholarship quarterbacks. So I think it's advantageous to keep each one because that's already maybe thinner than you'd like to have. I think you'd like to have 4. But it's really hard to sell a 4th guy to come and be part of the group. And so, yeah, I think that you could always see one leave. But at the same time, I don't know that they'll get a good enough of an indication that they would want to leave and not keep competing into the fall.
Not every year, Nick, do we get the buildup that we got for Ryan Williams last year coming out of the high school ranks and the expectations that were there. But if there was a candidate to be that guy this year for Alabama coming in the fall or maybe coming in the spring, who would that newcomer be?
Oh, good question. I mean, I think expecting that Ryan Williams level would be pretty high expectations. But I think you can see some freshmen contribute. I mean, just some that I'm intrigued to see, not as near as, I guess, for lack of a better term, sexy of a position, but offensive line. You've got 2 just absolute dudes in Michael Carroll and Jackson Lloyd. And seeing how they progress. If they can take an offensive line starting job, I wouldn't be surprised to see at least one of them start before long. If not right away, you could see it. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but they've got that potential. And, I mean, of course, they got to get some college football under their belts. But I think there's good reason to be really high on both of those guys. And then you look at receiver, too, Derek Meadows. Got some great length. And, of course, it's going to be a crowded room there with Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard back, and of course adding Horton from Miami, and then you've got Rico Scott, who they seem to really like, and then Jalen Mbakwe is kind of a wild card there. So it's a full room, but Derek Meadows with his length and ability, I mean, I'm really intrigued to see what he can do. So those are a couple of newcomers, but if you want to talk transfer, I think Isaiah Horton could be a superstar this year. Of course, it depends on how well the quarterback plays, that whoever ends up winning that job, but I think he's going to be phenomenal.
Nick, in regards to the players that are hurt, you guys asked Kalen DeBoer that question yesterday in regards to, all right, who's going to be out? And it's a pretty lengthy list for the spring. I know that springs optimism for guys that are trying to make their way up the depth chart or new guys trying to establish themselves. But the guys that are out, full recovery expected for most of them, and it should not be an issue come fall camp?
Yeah, I think that's the case. There's no indication otherwise. I think it's just a lot of guys that you want to make sure are ready to go. I'll be curious to see how, like, a Deontay Lawson progresses, just because his injury was pretty late in the season. What was it, the Oklahoma game? So I think he's a guy who, you got to see how that goes. But then, Keon Sabb, someone like him that got hurt relatively early last season, I think he's a guy you can definitely expect to be ready to go sooner than later. Obviously serious injury, but definitely someone who is going to be huge to have back. So, yeah, I think it's just a case of getting these guys healthy. You don't have to put them through spring ball, especially if they're veteran guys. And I think they have the opportunity to do that, and look forward to getting them healthy back for the fall.
How much of a difference could you detect, Nick, in Kalen DeBoer and just his overall demeanor in dealing with him yesterday?
I don't know, too different. I mean, I think there was a good energy. I think there was, as we talked about, with him being able to laugh a little bit about the quarterback question, and I think he's enjoying himself, but also he's very much so sharp and down to business. So I think that he's in a spot where he's not going to change who he is and become just not, I guess, fun or not jovial overall. But I think that you sense a sharpness to him and a, hey, we're getting out of business kind of mentality. So I don't know how different that is from last year, but that's just what I sensed yesterday.
Well, and in that same regard, do you anticipate that? I mean, listen, we love more access. We love it. It was such a change from what went on from the previous 17 years with Nick Saban. Do you sense that maybe in year two that maybe some of the openness might be curtailed a bit in year number two under Kalen DeBoer? I'm talking about just access and maybe some of the things that, you saw social media-wise, a little bit more openness, maybe closed now under Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, I definitely anticipate it won't be the same as last year. Access was phenomenal last year, almost uncommon in college football. So you kind of knew to enjoy it while you could. But I think, we're seeing some of that. And part of that, to an extent, is just the new dynamic of schools and programs trying to create their own content, right, with putting stuff behind paywalls and getting in the content game, so to speak. So that's part of it. But, I think that there are some adjustments being made. Expectation right now, I don't think, is we're going to be talking to freshmen this season. So just some changes like that aren't too major. But I think there will be some that, just maybe a little bit more Saban-esque.
What is the level of buzz for tomorrow night's big showdown with the Florida Gators inside of Coleman Coliseum compared to maybe where it was a week ago?
I mean, I think they're at a point of they got to recover. I mean, you just think about the emotional toll the way that game ended against Tennessee. How do you respond to that? Because, I mean, to be honest, I'm still shaking my head at it. I mean, I can't believe they lost that game. When you're up by 4 with 36 seconds left, you should not lose. And they did. And the worst part, I think, for Alabama is they outplayed Tennessee. They played well. I mean, that was one of their better performances against the Rick Barnes Tennessee team. And then to lose it the way they did, I mean, that could be a real just essentially pull you down kind of situation if you let it. And so it's really key, I think, for them to win the mental game of just forgetting that game, moving on, and moving forward. So I think this Florida game, more than anything, of course, it's a tough opponent. You'd rather have maybe a little easier opponent to face to get back on track. But Alabama's really got to get back in the right mentality and make sure to just leave that game in the past because, holy cow, was that a tough loss.
Nick, in regards to Alabama moving forward, they're still in the conversation for a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Needless to say, it would go a long way, to get 2 wins this week. Going to be tough going down to Neville Arena, goes without saying. But next week in Nashville, like where do you see this team or other SEC teams that, are already solid in regards to where they are in the NCAA tournament field? Yeah, you might need to pick up a win or two maybe to enhance your opportunities to jump up on the next line. But where do you think this Alabama team, when it's all said and done, where do you think they will end up in regards to being a number 1 or number 2?
I'm leaning number 2 right now just because it could be hard to jump Tennessee for that final spot if Joe Lunardi's projections are correct, which I would trust him more than my own intuition with that. I just think that, that loss was tough. Now, if you do go beat Florida and Auburn, you're going to be a number 1 seed. But I don't think necessarily that's going to happen. I think KenPom gives Alabama like an 18% chance to beat Auburn on the road. Not to say it can't happen, but it definitely is going to be a tough game to win. If you beat Florida, you lose to Auburn, maybe. I think it just depends on what happens with Tennessee, what would happen with the Houston. But to me, Duke and Auburn are locks for 2 of the top 1 seeds. So it's those other 2 spots. And, it could be tough to get one of those spots. But at this point, I think you really just have to look at, okay, how do we, recoup? If I'm Alabama, how do we recoup to get to a point where we can go rattle off some games in March? Less so about the SEC tournament because, hot take, it actually isn't always the best thing to go win the SEC tournament because that's extra games and you're turning right around into March Madness. And as Alabama proved last year, sometimes it can be advantageous to not be playing into Sunday of that tournament, and then you can go on a run in March Madness. So I think, get through this next few games. I mean, they're not going to face tougher opponents for a while in March once they get through the SEC tournament. So in some ways, this is tougher than it's going to be come SEC tournament time or come March Madness time. And so, just get through this, try to win as much as you can, and try to make sure you keep building so you can go on that run in March. I think that has to be the focus right now.
As a college basketball fan and doing what we do, Nick, on a daily basis, I love tournament settings. I do. I was curious, though, personally, in doing what you do for a living, do you enjoy tournament settings and covering whatever sport Alabama happens to be playing in?
I do. I think it's really fun just to have the back-to-back-to-back nature of it.
Yeah.
And frankly, just to kind of go on the road and go up to Nashville, not that it's that far away, but just kind of, business trip, if you will, for us. I do enjoy that element of it. It is fun. It is a grind, especially if they make it to Sunday, that turnaround into selection show and then wherever they're headed next. But I personally enjoy it. So I don't know if I can speak for everyone in our business, but I do enjoy it myself.
All right, so give me one player not named Mark Sears that Alabama vitally needs to step up his game if they want to have a run like they did last year. Give me one player. Yeah,
it's simple. It's Grant Nelson. I think for him, we've seen what he's capable of doing. Just look at UNC last year. And he can take over games. I mean, he is capable of that. Now, he has dealt with some injuries, he's been a little banged up, so that impacts some things. But he's got to remember he's good enough to take over games and make sure he's in that headspace. Because when he's rolling, I mean, Grant's tough to stop. I mean, he's been hustling, so give him credit. Like, he's been winning blue-collar points in a lot of games that he hasn't necessarily put up big offensive numbers. So the hustle's there. It's just can he be that dominating player? Because to me, when he's on, I mean, he's so tough to stop. Mark Sears is obviously very tough to stop when he's on because he can hit threes. But when Grant Nelson's on, again, we saw what he did against UNC. We've seen it in other games too. So Grant Nelson, to me, is the key. Nate's talked about it. Nate's hinted at it. So what Grant Nelson does, I think, is going to be indicative of what this team can do in the NCAA tournament.
It's so true because some nights he's such a valued asset, and then there's some nights you're watching games and you hate to say it, but it's almost like you're taking a spot on the floor. Get off the floor.
Yeah, I mean, he can be a liability if he doesn't play to his full capability. And, of course, you don't really want to take a guy like that off the floor because he can get hot and he can be that player for you. But, yeah, I mean, when he's not playing well, he's not helping you as much. So not to state the obvious, but, no, I think he's the X factor to me down the stretch.
Well, Nick, you always do a wonderful job. Nick Kelly covering Alabama athletics at _Nick Kelly on Twitter. You can find his work at al.com. Nick, we always appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much.
Hey, great talking to you guys. Have a good Tuesday.
You as well. Nick Kelly joining us. All of our guests join us on the Buyers Right Insurance Hotline. Buyers Right Insurance for all of your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner.
Well, owning a home is great, but it can come with its share of headaches. Some of you out there are having foundation issues with your home. Cracks have started showing up. Those doors and windows won't close right. You can't ignore it because those issues are going to get worse. That's why you need to call APS today, 205-951-9717. It will be the best decision you've made to protection of your home in quite some time. APS will send a team out. They really know their stuff. They'll inspect everything, explain the problem clearly. They're going to offer solutions that are tailored to your home. No pressure, just honest advice. Call them today, 205-951-9717. Or you can visit them online at alabamaprofessional.com. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. So if you're dealing with a foundation issue, a wet basement, or sinking concrete, do yourself a favor. Call APS today, 205-951-9717.
Molly Robinson is in the house as that means the birthday party is about to begin for BB just across the way. We're live here at Social Taco in Homewood. We're here until 2 o'clock. Come and join us for the Mix and Match Taco Tuesdays, the Mexican pizzas, the burritos, and there's so much more. SocialTaco.bar for more information. It's three-man front, plenty to come. We just heard the Alabama side. We'll hear the Auburn side from Nathan King coming up at the top of the hour. Three-man front on this Thursday live from Social Taco in Homewood on Jocks 94.5. Welcome back in. Social Taco on a Tuesday. Landrum, Pat, Molly, Conrad hanging out. BB, Gringo, Foley.
It is getting really busy up here.
PG.
It's great to see PG. Still great to see everybody, but
Jim, Elaine, thanks for being here. You can be here too, as we're broadcasting until 2 o'clock. The doors are open. It's a pretty day outside. A little windy, a little gusty. Hang on to your chips. It's a little gusty outside. Starting to spring. I tell you, this is my favorite weather time of year, spring. In the spring. Shorts, nice quarter zip. You shell that later in the afternoon. Little acoustic out on the patio somewhere, preferably here, and enjoy yourself. Baseball.
Yes.
Yeah, got the Masters. Yes. Got UFL. Yes. March Madness. It's good stuff. And warmer weather, which is always good.
I like fall too, like early fall.
Yeah, early fall is a good one.
Spring
but
and
I'm
fall.
too busy to enjoy it.
That's valid.
So spring is a little bit slower for me.
I agree.
But no, valid point.
I noticed you're part of your new spring wardrobe collection from 18 South that you're sporting today.
Ah, yes. And this is one of those Travis Matthews shirts. I had to look down to check, but it fits me quite well. Contours of my body.
Okay.
Like a fresh snow on a mountain ridge. I have no idea. But yeah, thank you for 18 South for outfitting me today. These pants, too.
Nice.
Yep.
Very nice.
I'm relaxed, but you can tell I mean business.
You always mean business.
That's exactly right.
We've already heard from Mike Griffith, also Nick Kelly just a couple minutes ago. Nathan King from Auburn Undercover. He's going to join us at the top of the hour. Ben Portnoy is going to join us at 12:30 from the Sports Business Journal. We're going to talk to him about a number of things, including the ACC Clemson-Florida State settlement. I understand that the Florida State Board of Trustees, they have now gone into executive session. If you're not familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, that basically means that they can go behind closed doors. It's not sunshine law. They can basically say whatever they want to, and it's not going to be on the record. So apparently they're going to be looking and advising each other on whether they should accept this deal from the ACC. Now, that deal, which is being reported, is going to give Florida State and Clemson and any other school in the ACC, if you find yourself with a lot of television viewers and you have success on the field, they have a formula set up that you could potentially make an additional $15 to $20 million a year. So if you're a school like Florida State and Clemson that find themselves $30 to $40 million behind an SEC school each and every year, that is going to help potentially cause you to catch up with another SEC school. But the big news today is in regards to the grant of rights agreement. According to Andrea Adelson from the ACC Network and ESPN, she tweeted out earlier today that the exit fee for any ACC school, if they want to leave the conference, it's expected to drop by $18 million each year through 2029 and 30. After that, the exit fee drops to $75 million. And here's the kicker. You get to keep your media rights.
And remind us again, what's the current exit fee?
Well, the belief was because, see, the ACC, once these lawsuits were filed, the ACC told Clemson and Florida State, well, there is no exit fee. Like, you have to stay in the conference through 2036. We own your grant of rights. Now, if you would like to pay the grant of rights
that's right.
out the rest of the contract, it's going to cost you probably around $360 million up to $500 million to get out of this contract. Hence the reason why Florida State and Clemson decided to sue the ACC. So now you're looking at a situation where if you can survive in the world of college athletics to 2029, 2030, $75 million, which by then and with inflation and everything else going on, that is a drop in the bucket.
Should Brett and Yormark of the Big 12 be nervous given this, or is that just a totally different set of circumstances? I'm just trying to think of the equivalent, Pat, of a Clemson or a Florida State.
Well, I think the Big 12 has got a better financial situation
Well,
than
they
the
do.
ACC.
I'm just saying if somebody wanted to pull the same card that those in Clemson, South Carolina, and Tallahassee, Florida are pulling, and having leverage, quite frankly, and I don't blame them for doing what they did, But are there other schools out there in other conferences right now that would look to make the same move? Big Ten, I'd say no, and SEC, no, obviously.
Yeah.
But is there potential for the Big 12 to have something similar occur?
Possibly down the road. I think they're pretty happy right now because it was that life preserver that was thrown to the Four Corner schools and people like that obviously if you would have stayed in the Pac-12, you would have been in trouble like.
Yeah, I bet Cal and Stanford probably aren't complaining too much, are they?
Well, here's the thing. So in this new deal, the settlement terms, 40% of the TV revenue is split evenly amongst the legacy schools, meaning California, SMU, and Stanford, they do not get a split of that television revenue for a few years. 60% of the TV revenue is based on brand initiative, which I mentioned before, where if Clemson and Florida State have a lot of eyeballs tune into their games, and you also have success on the field, all of that goes into a formula that you could potentially see $15 to $20 million more per year.
Well, and is that even feasible? They put that pie in the sky. It's like an incentive in a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Bonus. A lot of those, if you're being realistic when you read over those, you say, well, there's a good chance that this one's not going to be met, or it'd be hard to attain this one. I just wonder for some of these programs if they see that and they say, well, yeah, that's doable. We can get there in a 5-year window. I don't know how much ground you're going to be able to make up as far as eyeballs and hitting that number, that escalator.
As I mentioned, the Florida State Board of Trustees, they are currently in executive session. I believe Clemson's Board of Trustees are meeting as well because the ACC presidents, they have approved this new deal. So now it's just obviously the dotting of the I's, crossing of the T's from the other schools involved in these lawsuits. So, and that will be consummated and taken care of within probably the next hour. And so moving forward, the ACC for at least the next 4 years seems to be on as solid ground as it's been in a very long time.
I would love to be a fly on the wall and just hearing some of these preliminary conversations with Jim Phillips and how those conversations went with his constituents or the members of that conference that he's dealing with, the school presidents. How many others were out there that were saying, we don't want this deal?
Yeah.
How much of that back and forth actually went on? Because it does seem here that Clemson and Florida State, they hold all the cards, and maybe Jim Phillips, his message to everybody else was, well, if they pick up and they decide to leave or they want to move somewhere else, then we're in a whole bunch of hurt as far as our media rights deal and what that number could reflect. It's my guess. I would love to know what was said in those discussions, though we probably never will.
We're live at Social Taco. It is BB's birthday. Come on upstairs. Say happy birthday. Say hello to us, Molly, myself, and Landrum here on the Taco Terrace. This is Three Man Front on Jocks 94.5. Oh, man.
Twisted Sister, baby.
My brush with him going to come down and kicking my ass with
D.
Paul
Snyder.
Feinbaum. You remember that?
V. Pat Smith.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Wait, you almost came to fisticuffs with the lead singer of Twisted Sister?
That is correct. If he would have come down here.
Once Pat determined that he was a male and not a female, he decided that he would go toe to toe with D.
So basically, what happened, Conrad, in a nutshell, trying to make this story as quick as possible.
He did have pretty hair.
So basically, Rocker was the closer for the Atlanta Braves, and that was his walkout song. And Rocker had made some comments about riding a subway in New York City, going to a New York Mets series, and let's just say that it was not very flattering of some diversified people that live in New York City. So at the time, Dee Snider was doing a radio show of the company that Paul and I were working for in Hartford, Connecticut. And he decided that he was not going to allow the Braves to use that song as a walkout because he did not like what Rocker had told Sports Illustrated. So we decided that we're going to have a little fun with Dee Snider, and I called Dee, and I said, hey, we're part of the same company. We're in Birmingham. We do the syndicated show. Love to get you on to talk about whatever. Well, he came on, and Paul took offense to it, and as he took offense to it, Paul and Dee Snider got into an audible discourse in which Dee Snider said that he was going to get on a plane and come down and whip that old man's ass. And whip Paul. And so Paul said, I'll buy a ticket if you'll come down here. I'll be more than happy to have you down here. And so we negotiated for a little bit. I was trying to get him down here. It was going to be a fun little event. But Dee did not take it.
Would Paul have thrown a punch?
Maybe.
Y'all got some interesting stuff over there.
Is Dee Snider still with us?
I believe he is.
We need to get those two together.
I believe so. Maybe when Paul moves back to Birmingham, maybe we'll finally buy him a ticket and get him to fly down here.
Maybe we can get out on a private lake in a dinghy.
Yeah, like Rick Carley and Nick Saban and Paul did.
Well, Landrum, you'll be happy to know that he is alive and well, and he is a young, crisp 69 years old.
Yeah, Paul can take him.
Yeah, I think Paul.
That's actually that's pretty. Yeah, what's his measurables?
Well, I know his hand might have grown from.
He's 6'1".
He's 6'1".
I don't know about a weight, but he's 6'1".
Is that 6'1" with his hair teased?
So I was thinking the
Probably
heels
so.
that he wore on stage, but Dee Snider he's got him a snoz too, doesn't he?
I'll tell you off the air. I'm not going to tell it on the air. Some things that I found out about Dee Snider.
I just found out something on Google that's not very flattering.
Was it about his wife?
Oh, I thought you were about to say he was a really good person and he gives back.
Is it about his wife?
Yes, it is, Pat. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's about his wife and the birth of one of their children.
Yeah, and also maybe just how they met in general.
Wait a minute. It doesn't have to do with placenta, does it?
It does.
Oh,
no. It absolutely
no,
has
I don't even know the story. Oh.
Yep. It has absolutely everything to do with that.
No.
Yep.
Let's go back to political.
Well, he had to play Dee Snider. I had to bring it up.
Now I can't even do this live. That's a terrible transition.
Well, you're the one that brought it up.
I know.
I told you I would tell you during the break.
But you can't do that to me. You know I'm going to guess it, and I can't stop thinking about it. And now that's going to be on my mind for the next 2 hours. Dang it. Ugh. Maybe equal to what we saw coming.
Well, you know, yesterday on Paul's show, Don called in Paul's show, and Paul said he would come and do his show from here when he comes back to Birmingham.
I would hope so.
Get Paul up here on Taco Terrace.
They will custom make Paul tacos for his special diet, whatever that is.
Paul loves Mexican food.
Does he?
Absolutely.
Did not know that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Almost every time when we traveled places, we would almost end up in a place very similar to Social Taco.
If Paul will drink a beer, I'll drink a beer. Will you drink a beer? That's right.
Don brought up the dollar beer. here at Social Taco.
Yeah.
And Paul was talking about how much beer he'd like to drink before he
I
goes
think
and
Paul
does the
had
show.
one, maybe, when we were in Nashville visiting last time.
Yeah, when we had lunch with
he
him.
might have had half of one.
Me and you, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, me and you had like 7 or 8. But
Oh, they had to drag us out of there.
yeah.
Couldn't
But Paul
stand
was
up
buying,
straight.
so why not?
Got that Amex. What color was that Amex? It's the highest one that you get.
I'd never seen that color, to be honest with you.
It's a special color. Somebody's ordering the dollar cervezas.
Oh, it's starting to flow now.
Beckley's up here. She's delivering a tray full of cold beer here at Social Taco. You can come and join us as we broadcast until 2 o'clock. It's BB's birthday. We're up top in the terrace. And if you've never met BB, she is the first lady of our get-togethers here on Tuesday. And she is a radiant, just fine, fine woman. And she is celebrating a birthday. I don't know how old she is or how young she is, but she looks
29.
fabulous. Yep. She looks fabulous.
Sure does. So come on and see us. We're located on the second floor here at Social Taco. And I know that a lot of people head to Ramblers for watching a UAB game this weekend.
Well,
and
not only that, but you've got Auburn coming up this weekend, Auburn and Alabama, that big game at Neville Arena. You want to watch college basketball. You want to watch the NBA. I got that too. But March Madness, tournament time, no better place to watch than Rambler Sports Bar and Grill, 1630 2nd Avenue South next to Railroad Park. This is an upscale sports bar, but it's awesome. Don, some of our other listeners, they finally took me up on it. I've been telling you about them through the fall up until now, but he said, you were right, Landrum. Oh, my gosh, that place is amazing. From the 283-inch projector screen, the video boards, all the different screens that they have, to the upscale menu, the signature cocktails, Rambler Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Birmingham for consuming sports. Rambler Sports Bar and Grill at the Finnick, 1630 2nd Avenue South near Railroad Park.
Well, it doesn't take long, especially this time of the year. You're going to start hearing rumors galore about coaching changes and who could be heading elsewhere. When we come back on Three-Man Front, 2 local coaches, a big name in regards to the basketball world in the reporter world, is saying that a couple of local names could be headed to maybe Tallahassee. We'll get into that next on Three-Man Front. It is 11:46. Jocks 94.5 coming up at the top of the hour. Nathan King will join us from Auburn Undercover at 12:30. Ben Portnoy is going to join the show from the Sports Business Journal. I teased this going into the break, and this is March Madness, which means you're going to hear rumors, and continued rumors. According to Jeff Goodman at Goodman Hoops, he tweeted out a few moments ago, here are a few names in the mix for the Florida State job, sources told the Field of 68. Celtics assistant Sam Cassell. Sam played at Florida State. That would make perfect sense. Kings assistant coach Luke Laux. Arkansas State coach Brian Hodgson. You remember him from Alabama?
Nate Oates' assistant,
Yep. Duke assistant Chris Carrawell. And there's two very familiar names that round out the list by Jeff Goodman. UAB coach Andy Kennedy, Samford coach Bucky McMillan.
Two candidates that Florida State fans should be excited about. We here in Birmingham obviously don't want to leave them or them to leave us, but
I just don't want to have to relocate.
That's true.
Let's try to think about your whole dynamic. Oh.
That changes things.
It does. They got a good hospital down there in Tallahassee. Paige could get a job. Not that she needs one.
Leon County's a great county to live in.
Yeah.
You're
Hear
not
good
too
things
far from
about
the
their
beach.
judicial system.
Yeah, your dad's down there, what is it, Santa Rosa?
That's true, yeah.
We're making a positive
I don't think they have too
column
many
box
caves.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
you'll be fine.
water
You'll be
caves
all right.
you got to watch out for down there, Molly.
Yeah, but I think you'll be okay. I think you can keep your
So what do y'all
distance.
think about that? Andy Kennedy, Bucky McMillan mentioned, according to Jeff Goodman, for the Florida State job.
Hopefully they go with Sam Cassell, but yeah, I think that those would be two names. I'm trying to think of anybody else that I'm surprised I don't see their name on the list, but
Nate
Hodgson
Oates.
has done a great job. Yeah, Nate Oates. Well, it's from Goodman. We didn't see a Bruce Pearl in there anywhere, did we?
No.
That Tallahassee would be a potential destination. I guess they're not blue blood enough. But what was Leonard Hamilton making? Just wondering what that job pays. Is that $4 or $5 million?
I don't know, but he had that thing rolling
He was
for a while.
he made this year $2.25 million.
Okay, 2.25. Wow.
That's not a lot of money.
That's kind of a steal, but that would be an increase in pay for both of the coaches, excuse me, that you mentioned.
Yeah. But, you know, Andy made Birmingham his home
Yeah.
for a very long time. Even when he was working at the SEC network, you know, he chose to make Birmingham his home.
I'm not going to – I don't want to speak for either one of these guys. I would think, though, that Bucky, if offered, would be more prone to leave.
I agree.
Andy, more reasons, I think, to stay at this point in his career.
Well, I mean, he was a UAB legend, and he talked about coming back to UAB and obviously, you know, bringing back the Bartow standard, which, you know, was getting to NCAA tournaments, and he has done that. And he's done an excellent job as UAB's head coach. I mean, we have not seen with the invention of the UAB basketball program a 5-year period where the school has won more games, and that includes Gene Bartow, when Bartow coached here in the 80s. So, you know, I would just be very disappointed because, I mean, I believe Andy when he says that he wants to obviously bring back the Bartow standard, and that Bartow standard would be him saying here. So we'll see what happens, but that is a compliment for what he has been able to do at UAB over the course of the last 5 years.
Yeah, and Florida State, prior to Leonard Hamilton, that basketball program, they'd had some up and down years, but you feel like that financially that you'd be in a good position from an NIL standpoint, maybe not where it would be with some schools in the ACC or the SEC, but certain roadblocks that you would not have to deal with if you were Bucky McMillan leaving Samford.
True. So yesterday on the Paul Feinbaum show, Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, he was on the program, and Molly, he goes after your school, your alma mater.
Of course he does.
Goes after Nebraska
versus the world
for being chickens and dropping out. He says, I saw a series that was disappointing from my perspective when Nebraska announced it wasn't going to play a contracted series with the University of Tennessee. I think that would have been great for college football. Early in the season, we saw Wake Forest, like 2 or 3 days before the first game of a 2-game series with Ole Miss, cancel that. This is not to point the finger at Nebraska's athletic director, who I have a good relationship with, but he said, I talked to a CFP selection committee member, and they said they didn't think not playing that game would hurt Nebraska's opportunity for the CFP. I think we have to cope with that reality. That's not great for college football. End of quote from Greg Sankey.
Can't have it both ways. So do we want to have less number of teams? Do we want to go back to the BCS, a 4-team college football playoff, have it at 12, expand to 14, 16, whatever that number is? But no, it's probably not going to be ideal.
Well, what's so interesting is that if whether it's a Nebraska athletic director or anybody else, and they are consulting with a CFP committee member about the potential of what that would do or not do for you moving forward and making a college football playoff, I don't think that is good business for a CFP member to be having that discussion.
No, it's not. But why would you even need to have that conversation with the CFP member when you just watch Indiana go through their schedule this year and make a college football playoff?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, there's 13 members of that committee, and I think that, hopefully that person is being rotated off of the committee, because I find that, all of a sudden are you opening up a consulting business and now you're taking money from athletic directors, giving them your – I mean, this is what the old NCAA investigators used to do. Those NCAA investigators.
Who do you think the coach was?
They used to leave, and they would open up their own consulting business.
Yeah.
And then so when Alabama or Auburn would all of a sudden get a letter of inquiry from the NCAA, then you would call the law firm that was being run by a former NCAA investigator. Is this what we're going to expect now from college football committee members?
I hope not.
Is hey, let me get with your school and let me come up with your football schedule, because I can tell you what we say behind closed doors about your schedule.
No, but and it's a different sport, but would it surprise you that these conversations probably happen with NCAA tournament committee members and current head coaches?
Are you talking about from a basketball perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it not also tell you that they don't care about the level of competition of these games? If they're telling Nebraska, hey, it's probably in your best interest not to play Tennessee, does that not indirectly say that strength of schedule doesn't really matter that much to the committee?
See, to me, that is the thing that is the most discouraging for me, is that you're basically saying we don't want to see 2 top-notch Power 4 programs play. Go schedule Northern Iowa or whoever else you want to put on the schedule, and then that's going to be okay with us. Once again, there's no transparency. This one particular member that talked to the Nebraska athletic director, you think it's Will Shields?
Well, I don't know. He played at
Because
Nebraska.
he played at Nebraska.
Maybe.
I mean, he's going to be the first person of interest.
Yeah. When does his term end? Is he already off? They rotate every 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know. I will look up his term.
See, Molly, I just thought y'all canceled it because you wanted to schedule Texas A&M and get a revenge game, but I guess not.
See, that would be the goal. But whatever.
I just found that interesting how Sankey went out of his way to bring that up. So.
See, but isn't the idea also that if you rotate the committee members or the chairman every year, that it's supposed to be, I guess, a fresh perspective on how you would rank the teams? And apparently maybe that's not actually happening if, this committee member feels like he has a pretty good grasp on what it's going to be in the future.
Yeah, because one thing's for sure on the college football playoff, every single year, you try to figure out, okay, what is the biggest value coming out of that committee? Is it a strength of schedule? Is it your conference play? whatever the course may be, that's what you tried to look at and try to figure out which direction they were going to be going in. We never could figure that out last year until the final Sunday when they said strength of schedule didn't matter. So, all right, we're going to go to Auburn, Alabama. Nathan King is going to join us next on the show as we're going to talk about tonight's game against Texas A&M and where things stand in Nathan's eyes in regards to the rest of the SEC and seeding purposes. We're live at Social Taco. Pat, Molly, Landrum, Conrad, come by and see us. We'll be here until 2 o'clock. This is Jocks 94.5. Welcome back. It is hour number 3. It is 12 noon here on Jocks 94.5. Also, great listeners up in Huntsville on the UMP. We've got Jocks 740 down in the capital city listening to us. We appreciate that very much. Those streaming the show on the Jocks 94.5 app or watching us on YouTube, welcome to the program. Already today we talked to Mike Griffith from the AJCDogNation.com. We also heard from Nick Kelly, who covers the Alabama Crimson Tide for AL.com. We're going to be joined in just a moment by Nathan King from Auburn Undercover. Ben Portnoy is going to join us a little bit later. Some news headlines at this hour. The ACC, Florida State and Clemson, it is now official. They have all agreed to put their swords down. That's right. They're all going to be one happy camper sing Kumbaya, and the ACC survives for at least another 4 years. Let's go to the Buyers Route hotline in just 1 second. But, Molly, before we get into the basketball conversation, our Twitter poll question today had to deal with the success of the SEC in the upcoming tournament.
Yeah, which of these SEC teams will make it the farthest in the Upcoming big dance that we got going. Will it be Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, or Auburn? And right now winning with almost 60% of our voters saying Auburn, 28% saying Alabama, 10% saying Florida, and only 3.4 saying Tennessee.
Only 3.4 for the Vols. Okay. Joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline, talk a little Auburn basketball. Nathan King from Auburn Undercover. Nathan, you just heard the poll question. The majority of our listeners, almost 60%, believe Auburn is going to go the farthest in the NCAA tournament. We still got a few games before we actually get to March Madness on that Selection Sunday, but how do you think this Auburn team is fit right now from an injury standpoint and everything else as they get ready for the SEC tournament next week?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably makes sense to extend that question a little bit and say who in the entire sport of college basketball is going to go the farthest in the tournament, and my pick would be Auburn right now. I mean, you look at what this team has done, obviously the body of work the entire season, and but you mentioned it, though, right now in the month of March is what matters. How are you playing? How healthy are you? What does your confidence look like? And for Auburn at the moment, I mean, the health perspective, just Denver Jones, a minor ankle issue for him. He might not go tonight against Texas A&M, but it's not something that's going to hold him out for very long, if at all. He may be able to give it a go. But Bruce Pearl talked about it yesterday. You know, he said the upside of a team is really important this time of year. He mentioned Alabama. He mentioned that Alabama team last year that obviously, if I remember completely correctly, they kind of limped to the finish line. They were ahead in the SEC and then lost some games down the stretch. But there was plenty of upside. You knew what their potential was, and it was just a matter of them getting their act together. Auburn back in 2019, you know, he kind of provided an interesting window into that season saying, look, we knew internally we had a lot of upside if we were playing well, and then obviously in the month of March they picked it up. And so that was the question for this Auburn team. We've seen good Auburn teams under Bruce Pearl have good bodies of work throughout the season, but then not play their best in the month of March. I thought the last two results for this team were really important. I mean, you beat a good Ole Miss team by 30, and then obviously that historic win that I'm sure we'll talk about at Rupp Arena. You played about as well as you possibly could have while your National Player of the Year candidate had only 9 points in the game and made only 3 shots. And so definitely this team is feeling very, very confident right now heading into the final week of the regular season, which is exactly what you want to see this time of year.
And, Nathan, you mentioned the game last Saturday, and if there was going to be a slip-up spot, that would have obviously been a great candidate there in Rupp Arena, where Auburn had struggled so mightily over the past 2.5, 3 decades. But for that Auburn team to go in, Miles Kelly to have the performance that he did, what was the challenge that Bruce Pearl put forth before his team, before they took the floor Saturday in Lexington? Because that team looked like they were not going to come around and play with their food. They were on a mission, and they hit Kentucky in the mouth early.
Yeah, I mean, this team's done a really good job of being prepared for every single opponent. And Bruce Pearl said it yesterday. It's kind of a blend between respecting the opponent but also diving into the scouting report and feeling like every game is extremely important to really pay attention from a practice perspective. But no, his challenge in the locker room before the game, he said, look, you know, each team has played 15 SEC games. You know, what's your record? And they said 14-1. And then he said, what's Kentucky's record? 8-7. And his point was, everyone has the exact same opportunities you do. They play the same amount of games. They play in the same league. And look how much better prepared you have been throughout the season. Look how much better you have played than literally everyone else in the entire country throughout the season. And his point was, you know, you deserve this championship. You put yourself in position to go get it, and you deserve it. So now go out there and get it. And yeah, I mean, he's imbued this team with a lot of confidence throughout the season in a lot of different spots. And it's just been so impressive to me, the ability that they've had, other than that Florida game. And it kind of felt like they were due for a letdown spot there, but I think that may have been a good thing that they had a performance like that to kind of shake them and wake them up a little bit there in mid-February. Really, other than that game, you can barely point to any instances this season of this team not getting up, of this team not seeming prepared for a game. And that's why, I mean, tonight looks like as good of an opportunity as anyone will have on their schedule to beat Auburn. Texas A&M is a horrendous matchup for this Auburn team. Before last season, Bruce Pearl had exactly 1 win against Buzz Williams in his tenure. I mean, it's proven to be a dreadful matchup for this Auburn team. It's senior night for the Aggies. Wade Taylor's going for their scoring record. Auburn could be down a starter. Like, all of these things are set up, and they've already won the title. Like, this game is pretty pointless from a stakes perspective. And yet I have no reason to believe Auburn won't win, just because they've already set that up. They've already done such a good job in every single game this season. So kudos to them from a preparation standpoint. That's been the most impressive thing about this team, and obviously they know it's most important to keep that going once the big dance gets underway.
Nathan, go in a little more into depth about what this particular matchup, why it causes so many problems for Bruce Pearl teams historically.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn has not been great rebounding the last couple seasons, really the better part of the last 3 seasons on the defensive glass. And for 2 straight years now, Texas A&M has been the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the country. I mean, you hate to simplify it so much, but really Texas A&M's game plan right now, they kind of just throw up a bunch of shots and send a bunch of guys to the glass. They're a little bit vulnerable in transition. We saw a little bit of that from them in the Florida game. When Alabama came to town, they were able to take advantage of that as well. But you're talking about a Texas A&M team that is dead last in the SEC in 3-point shooting, dead last in 2-point shooting, dead last in free throw shooting. I mean, this is a really, really bad offensive team, and yet they're able to get so many second chance points because they're number 1 nationally in offensive rebounding rate. And so it's that combined with the physicality on the inside and just kind of the willingness to bang on the interior and not be afraid to be physical in that regard. We've seen that's how teams match up well against Janai Broome, is just really being physical with him in the post from the outset. And then Auburn kind of – because, I mean, look, Janai Broome is maybe the best player in the country, but he's a finesse big man. Like, that is his game. That's not a derogatory term, but it's what he does. He's a post player through and through. And so teams kind of try to rough him up at the beginning of the game. Kentucky did a really good job of that, actually. Amari Williams, who's like 6'10", 240, and really physical defender, really kind of walled up Janai Broome early in that game. He missed a couple shots, and they're able to get him off his rhythm. Now, Auburn played so well otherwise that didn't matter at all, and you may very well see that. Texas A&M is susceptible from a 3-point shooting percentage. Their catch-and-shoot 3-point defense is very, very bad. Auburn's catch-and-shoot 3-point offense is very, very good. And so, but you know, it's the switching on defense too. I don't know if you guys remember when Kermit Davis was at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
It was something about that drop zone that just really bugged Bruce Pearl's team over the years. From a system perspective, from an offense versus defense perspective of what these specific systems do, it's just not been a good match for Auburn against Buzz Williams under Bruce Pearl. But I think, as Buzz Williams said yesterday, he said it yesterday in his Texas A&M press conference, the reason this Auburn team is so good is because they can play so many different styles. If you want to get in the track meet, they got the athletes and the shooters to do it. If you want to play slow in half court, they're the nation's most efficient half court offense. And so they should be able to adapt to whatever A&M wants to do. They've obviously done that so well all season, but it's worth noting they won't have their starting point guard, I think. I would be a little bit surprised if Denver Jones plays. We'll see what his status is today. But regardless, I think Todd Pettiford, the freshman, is going to start at point guard. So that could be something to watch when you're putting a freshman out there against such a potent and physical defense.
Well, Nathan, nobody in America has played better basketball this year consistently has been the Auburn Tigers. And I know whether you're a fan, whether you're Bruce Pearl, you know, there is a lot of nitpicking because no matter what you've done during the regular season, it is what you do in March and early April that is going to define this basketball team. But if there was an area from the people that you talk to and around that program, is there one area of concern that they would like to get shore up before March Madness fully gets into gear?
Yeah, it's interesting. Bruce Pearl was asked about this yesterday, and in typical Bruce Pearl fashion, he kind of he'll take your question and answer it the way he wants to, which is just what an experienced coach will do. But he took that opportunity to talk about what I mentioned, playing different styles, and I think that was kind of his point to touch on. Auburn's ability to do that has obviously been so successful this year, but they need to continue to do that. That needs to continue to be something that they focus on, because you get to the big dance, and Auburn's going to obviously, you know, they'll do some 8-9 preparation in that before that first game. Obviously, they'll be preparing for a 16 seed overall, but they'll look at those 8-9s that are in their bracket. But at the end of the day, you've only got one full day of practice to prepare for your next opponent when you're talking about that round of 32 games. So I just think continuing to be versatile from that perspective. I mentioned the rebounding could be better on defense, but they just do so many other things well. They were minus 13 on the glass against Kentucky, and like, who cares? It doesn't really matter. They could have won that game by 25. And then free throw rate, though, I think is kind of, if you're looking at statistics, I believe they're like in the 300s nationally in opposing free throw rate. Alabama shot a lot of free throws against them. Florida shot a lot of free throws in their building. Kentucky just shot 38 free throws against Auburn. Again, as I talked about, they played so well otherwise, that didn't really matter, but those are things you can really nitpick. But I think after Saturday, there were a lot of sort of nitpicks that I think you could just kind of brush off after a game like that. Like Janai Broome, okay, you're physical with him, and he's not making, his turnaround shots early in the game. That's something that can kind of be a hindrance to Auburn when their best player is off. But when everyone else is so good, that obviously kind of makes that obsolete. And so I think just continuing from what Bruce Pearl said yesterday, it kind of seems like they're trying to be preemptive about what their issues could be. And that's why I think he pointed to the style storyline there, playing different styles, being able to adapt from game to game, buying into the scouting report, because he knows whether it's the round of 32 or you get, the next weekend and you get to something like the Elite Eight. Again, you only have one day to prepare for those teams. How can you adjust on the fly? How can you make sure that you defend and walk into the scouting report on the fly? I think it's sort of a forward-thinking mindset for this team right now on how they can maximize their potential and make a deep run in March.
I know what Coach Bruce Pearl says, Nathan, but you've got to be asking yourself and talking with your fellow writers there at Auburn Undercover about minutes when it comes to the SEC tournament. And Bruce Pearl, he's been in this situation before. We know it can be a grind in trying to win or just play in 3 games there in Nashville. What is your best guess as to how he handles minutes with the starters in the rotation come next week?
So he talked about this a couple weeks ago, saying that they make like a mid to late February pivot from a practice perspective and a preparation perspective on minutes. Because I think there was a game, I can't remember which one it was, Janai Broome, I think it might have been Arkansas. Janai Broome had to play 36 minutes. Dylan Cardwell was just in really bad foul trouble. But after the game, Bruce just kind of brushed it off and said, look, this time of year, we understand these things can happen. And so Janai didn't feel winded or anything like that. We felt like we were prepared from a conditioning perspective. That is the question. That is the question about next week in Nashville, because you hate to say there's nothing on the line, but really for Auburn, unless they go out and win the SEC tournament, it doesn't matter. Like, it literally does not matter at all what they do there. I think I tend to think they've already locked up number 1 overall. I've seen some bracketologists talk about maybe one more win is necessary. You kind of feel like they're going to get that this week in one of these 2 games. But so maybe you're still trying to lock up number 1 overall. But I think the biggest thing is that, in terms of minutes, maybe you see some adjustments here and there. But I think from a coaching perspective, I think this team, they're in such a groove, you don't mess with that. Like, Bruce Pearl was very adamant yesterday, and I thought it was a good question. Like, hey, do you do anything different these last couple games because you've already clinched the title outright? Like, you may have clinched the number 1 overall seed. And Bruce Pearl said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're trying to go undefeated on the road. On Saturday, there's, you don't need any stakes to play Alabama. I mean, we seem to be in the Sun Belt for all we care. They're going to get up to play one another. And so I think at this point, you don't change that much. Even though the SEC tournament doesn't mean much to this team unless they go and win another title and win 3 games in 3 days. I don't think you mess with the chemistry. I don't think you mess with the formula that's worked so well for you all season. You try to keep the minutes consistent. You try to simulate your rotations for the NCAA tournament. You try to simulate practice settings for the NCAA tournament. I really just think, clearly everyone can see it in the country. This team's got some sort of juice that's worked out for them this year. They've got this extra gear that even the best Auburn teams under Bruce Pearl have not been able to find. How can they bottle that up and continue that into March Madness? I think the best answer to that is you don't mess with it. You don't try to change it. You don't try to change minutes too much, even though you could say the SEC tournament is a bit pointless for this team other than if they were to win it all. I think you go out there and you just try to continue to be as consistent as possible.
Nathan, in regards to the SEC as a whole, we've been debating this and we saw it all season long. This is as deep as this league has ever been. When the dust settles, do you anticipate the SEC getting 12, 13, heck, maybe even 14?
The Oklahoma conversation is really interesting because, it just seems like they are so undeserving. And I hate to like make that kind of a sweeping statement, but I saw someone talking the other day, I believe it was Kevin Sweeney of SI, saying Oklahoma's best wins came in December. Like they over the in SEC play and over the past X amount of weeks, they've only won 25% of their games. I mean, I understand the byproduct of playing in a really good league, but I also think when you're in a really good league, you can go ahead and play yourself out of it if you're not up to it. And so, I mean, I can't really necessarily do the numbers off the top of my head, but I think Arkansas might have played them. They might have done the same thing. Arkansas might have just played themselves out of it with that loss to South Carolina. Now, I've seen people talking about Georgia on the bubble. Georgia should be in. Georgia should be in after they beat Florida. Like, I mean, that is the win you were looking for to go and get. And maybe by that same logic, you could say Arkansas is in because they got that big win against Missouri that they were looking for. And so maybe 13. I mean, the record is 11, right? If I'm not mistaken. And so it seems like they're going to set the record regardless. But I think LSU, I mean, obviously LSU and South Carolina are completely out of it. I think Texas and Oklahoma could both be out of it. And you got to think about bid stealers that are going to be on the line too in these next couple weeks and stuff. I mean, just the body of work for both Oklahoma and Texas here. And Georgia absolutely with a win at Texas. I forgot about that as well. Georgia has to be in the tournament, absolutely. But you could only be looking at 12 now instead of 13 if both Oklahoma and Texas have played themselves out of it here down the stretch. But we'll see. I mean, usually the SEC tournament doesn't matter for seeding. Like it seems like over the years that's kind of been what we've come to learn, is that it doesn't matter as much as the regular season. But maybe this year is an exception with the league being so good. Maybe somebody like an Oklahoma could go win a couple quad one games in Nashville, and that could be what they need to get into the tournament.
He is Nathan King, does a outstanding job covering the Auburn beat at Auburn Undercover. You can find the podcast there, 247 Sports, at Nathan King 247 there on Twitter. Nathan, always appreciate the time. Thank you. Enjoyed tonight. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon.
Nathan King joining us. All of our guests join us on the Buyers Right Insurance Hotline. Buyers Right Insurance for all of your insurance, HR, and financial needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner.
More from Social Taco. Join us here on the Taco Terrace as a lot of folks coming in. A lot of new faces.
Hey.
Always good to see new folks. Listeners of Jocks 94.5 joining us here at Social Taco. We'll unpack some of the things that Nathan just told us. This is Three-Man Front on Jocks 94.5.
Welcome back in, live from Social Taco. Joseph, a new listener, is coming to introduce himself. Now Hastings is here. It's all coming full circle, Pat.
It is.
It's a good thing it's been created here at Social Taco. You can join us every Tuesday. We broadcast until 2 o'clock, from 10 until 2. The doors officially open at 11, but don't forget about Social Taco, especially in the springtime and the warmer months. You can enjoy the patio weather, the half-off happy hour with the half-off drinks and appetizers. And Saturdays and Sundays, you get brunch. Bottomless tapas brunch, 10 to 2:30 on Saturday, 10 to 2:30 here on Sundays. SocialTaco.bar for more information.
So this morning it became official as Florida State and Clemson, they have dropped their legal proceedings against the Atlantic Coast Conference. And doing so, it has set them up for a bigger payday moving forward. Also, the big story coming out of this is the fact that the new exit schedule that has been reported by ESPN and others, it is going to be a very reasonable $75 million by the end of this decade. And that is something, Landrum, that really started the whole lawsuit between the ACC and what you're seeing with Clemson and Florida State. It had to do with the fact that it was going to cost them an outrageous sums of money if they wanted to pursue maybe landing in the Big Ten Conference or the SEC.
Well, now this allows everything to kind of settle down, at least from a legal standpoint, and maybe moving forward with the conference where it's not the continuous questions of what's going to happen with Florida State and what's going to happen with Clemson. But this is going to come up again, and whether it's just those two schools in these kinds of conversations and talks with the ACC again, or if it's a North Carolina or Virginia or somebody else, but have to think that this is not the last that we hear of the ACC and maybe some of their member institutions wanting a bigger piece of the pie.
No, I think you're absolutely correct. Some college football playoff news that has just come out a few moments ago. Ward Manuel did such a great job, Conrad, on the college football playoff. He's not even on the committee anymore. He is rotated off. He is gone. The CFP Management Committee, they have appointed Baylor University Athletics Director Mack Rhodes.
That's a good one.
Mack Rhodes is going to be in charge of the CFP, so we will see him every Tuesday night.
I already like the name. I have a good feeling about this.
Mack, yeah.
You like that? Mack
Well,
Rhodes.
we looked at two teams, and we didn't have to go very far. We just used our eyeballs and our good college football sense. I hope he talks like that.
Now, Mack Rhodes was very critical of the current Alabama offensive line coach.
Don't like him.
Doesn't like Kapilovic?
That turned quick. Yeah, did you not know that?
Oh, that's
I don't
right.
like this guy anymore. Let's get him out of there.
This guy's a stinker, Conrad.
He went on my good friend David Smoke's show there in Waco, Texas, and he was none too happy about the contract that he had signed with Baylor, and then he headed to Tuscaloosa.
Oh, man, it'd just be so difficult if I was a college football coach to decide between Alabama and Baylor. That would just keep me up at night trying to make that decision.
That was mean.
Yeah, it was.
Waco's got a lot of nice things there.
Waco's a nice town. I like Waco.
Do you?
Mm-hmm. Never been.
Did you go by where the Branch Davidians were?
No, I did not go there. But no, I've had barbecue in Waco. It's very good. I have not been to Mi Casita.
They have a real bear on their campus. That's something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a good town. It's where Dr. Pepper was founded.
That's right. I watched that
Okay,
documentary.
that's redeeming. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's redeeming.
That is actually redeeming.
All right, so Mack Rhodes is taking over as the CFP Selection Committee chairperson. And here's some news for you. Some folks are rotating off. Some folks are now coming on. Coming on to the committee, Mark D'Antonio, the former Michigan State head coach.
Okay.
Maryland AD Damon Evans.
Okay.
How
Remember
about this?
Georgia? He was from Georgia.
Yeah. How about this? Sports writer Ivan Mizell.
Okay.
Mobile's finest.
Yep.
Ivan Mizell.
Yeah, he's got football sense.
Stanford graduate. He is now on the committee, so we'll bring some smarts to it.
Yeah, but here long enough.
Chris Massaro, he is the athletics director at Middle Tennessee State University. And Wesley Walls, the former Ole Miss tight end.
Hey.
Yep, he is now on the committee. Say goodbye, folks, to Chet Gladchuk, Jim Grobe, Ward Manuel, Will Shields, Kelly Whiteside, and Gary Pinkel. So the theory that Landrum threw out about 30 minutes ago about Will Shields being the guy that had a conversation with the current athletics director at Nebraska.
Just because of familiarity.
Well, I mean,
Shields,
he's not on the committee anymore. So,
All-American in Nebraska.
So that gave him the opportunity to talk to his alma mater's AD, and obviously they came to the.
That's who I would have reached out to first if I was Nebraska's AD. Was anybody got Will Shields' cell phone number? Let me call him and see if we back out of this game, if it's going to hurt our potential of getting to a college football playoff, which is so unfair to ask anyways.
So a lot of moving and shaking going on here.
It is. What does the rest of the field look like? We try to do it every week throughout the football season.
Yeah.
I think as punishment, Nebraska should just have to play Iowa twice.
Oh.
I don't think I could handle that.
Is that really good for the game?
No, but neither is canceling a Nebraska-Tennessee game, so, you know.
Oh, that's true. How about termites? They cause over $5 billion in property damage each year, and the startling fact is that the damage is rarely covered by homeowners insurance. That's why you need to call our friends at Stark Exterminators. I tell you about it every single spring and every single summer. Call our friends at Stark. You're going to get one of their professional team members that comes to your home or your place of business, inspects it thoroughly inside and out, and comes up with a customized, tailor-made plan just for you and your property. Give them a call. Our friends at Stark Exterminators. They've been in business and family-owned for over 61 years. Get the free pest inspection today at your home or place of business. Call 855-STARK now or visit starkexterminators.com. And when you talk to them, tell them Landrum from Jocks 94.5 sent you.
So, Molly, this is not a surprising move, but some news coming out of the National Football League just moments ago.
Yeah, the Jets, they are releasing Devontae Adams.
No.
They were unable to find a trade partner for the three-time All-Pro, so New York is moving on and freeing up almost $30 million in cap space.
Wow.
Letting them go.
Aaron Rodgers, he can destroy a franchise, and they're still going to do him a solid so that he can go and take his buddy with him across town to the Giants.
Meanwhile, T. Higgins still gets the franchise tag placed on him.
Hey, I'll take a $26 million franchise tag.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's not bad.
Me too.
When we come back on Three-Man Front, Ben Portnoy is going to join us from the Sports Business Journal. We'll get his thoughts on this big ACC settlement with Clemson and Florida State. We'll also talk to him about an article he wrote in regards to how important it is now in college football to have a general manager of a football program. We'll get into that next with Ben Portnoy. It is 12:33, Jocks 94.5. It is now official. The ACC, Clemson, and Florida State have announced their litigation has been settled, so it is done. Let it be written, let it be said that there is harmony once again amongst the Atlantic Coast Conference or the All Coast Conference or whatever they're calling themselves now.
Let's hope Florida State, they hold up their end of the bargain, don't win one game again. This new great deal that they've been afforded by their conference.
Very much so. So now they could get between $15 and $20 million more a year, which that obviously will go a long way to try to cut into the deficit that they have with other major college football programs like in Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Auburn, and so forth. And the exit fee now has been lowered to a very manageable under $75 million at the end of the decade.
Well, speaking of that, extra money coming in, it's never a bad thing. And our friends at Prize Picks want to remind you that when it comes to daily fantasy sports options, the Prize Picks app, it's really hard to beat. It's really simple. If you've never set up an account, I invite you to do so. Download the Prize Picks app. You set up your account. You enter promo code WJOX. That's promo code WJOX. Your first $5 matchup. You play that first $5 matchup. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. You get $50 instantly kicked back to your account. So download the Prize Picks app. You're going to set up your account. You're going to play that first $5 play. Win or lose, $50 instantly back to your account. Tonight, we got Auburn and Texas A&M. More or less. Chaney Johnson of Auburn, does he score more or less than 9 points?
I say he's more.
I'm going more. Janai Broome, coming off the 9-point performance at Kentucky. 21 points, more or less.
Less.
I'm going to go less.
Yeah.
I think you have to have more Chaney Johnson tonight.
I agree.
All right, so we're going more than 9 points for Chaney Johnson, 21 points less. We're going for Janai Broome. It's that simple. All kinds of different matchups, different sports that you can play. Prize Picks, download the app today.
Outstanding writer for the Sports Business Journal joins us on the Buyers Ride Hotline, Ben Portnoy, on the program. Ben, it's just a nice, quiet day in the old world of legal briefings, and it is now officially official. The ACC, Clemson, and Florida State, they have put the swords down.
I don't know about you guys, but I think I need everyone to chill the heck out for a few days after all this. It's been between this, we got hearings in D.C., we've got new members on the CFP selection committee. I don't know if college sports was just trying to jam-pack all of this into, the same 30-minute window on purpose or not, but it's been a crazy day for a Tuesday.
For somebody who's been covering this for as long as you have in this particular story with Florida State and Clemson and the ACC, how surprised have you been that it took this long to get this done?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that this was sort of, I don't know, not to say something that was guaranteed to happen by any stretch, but I think that when you talk to a lot of people around this, right, a lot of people around this ongoing litigation between the ACC and Clemson and Florida State, there were basically two questions, right? There was one, if Florida State and Clemson are going to leave, where are they going to go, if they're going to go anyway? And two, are they going to win in court, or is this going to be settled? And so I think that the first part is, I think the reality is that, you look around, you see the SEC's not interested, the Big Ten's not interested, those things don't come together. Cool. That turns to your next question, which is, okay, can you challenge this legally? Where's that going to go? And the reality is, I think for all parties involved, it made sense for everyone to kind of come back together. Now, the other part of this, too, ESPN had its deal to extend its rights with the ACC through from 2027 through 2036. That deadline was basically last month. So the reality is that probably doesn't get resolved without some. My understanding is that's not getting resolved without some at least discussion or sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hey, we're going to figure out the lawsuit stuff as well. So I think these things are all kind of tied together. Certainly it's taken a while, and these things are always a slow-moving process. Nothing moves quite as slowly as the legal process in this country, so I think that this is another example of that. But I do think, look, there's obviously things to iron out, and I think that, details will continue to be ironed out over the next couple of weeks, et cetera. But for all intents and purposes, this closes this chapter for now.
In regards to, let's say, some lesser ACC teams, this is the part that I'm fascinated by, and we'll find out in due time. I know we're not going to hear much probably today, but I am curious how much kicking and screaming the likes of schools, let's just say Boston College or Wake Forest, some of these programs that have not had the type of success, and they obviously need the ACC to survive so that they can still get some type of monies each and every year from a conference. But how much kicking and screaming do you think they did in protest by the fact that now Clemson, Florida State, perhaps, and some other schools are going to get paid even more money than what they're going to get?
Yeah, I think this is kind of the most interesting piece of this. Look, we could talk about this for hours. There's a couple of sliding doors here, and does this all, is this all just kind of a, I don't know, for lack of a better term, sort of means to an end, and all of this is going to blow up in everyone's faces in 3 or 4 years anyway? Maybe. We don't know, right? But I do think the interesting thing here is that to give Jim Phillips and the ACC some credit, now, of course, their hand was forced a little bit on this, certainly with the Clemson and Florida State lawsuits and whatever else is going on, obviously. But this is the first league at this high major level to be sharing revenue unequally amongst its members, right? And I think that, there's sort of this, I know this stuff's really in the weeds for a lot of people, but think about it this way, right? The sort of mom and pop nature of college athletics on some level, despite the billions that are flowing into it, the general consensus amongst leagues and members in those leagues is that, hey, we're going to pay everyone equally. If we make $100 million and we have 10 members, cool, everyone's getting $10 million from our media rights revenue. That's been the case forever. It's sort of a we're in this together scenario. The ACC is now basically saying, hey, go earn it. If people watch and people want to see your teams, et cetera, we're going to compensate you for that. And I think that to me is, I think, the most fascinating sliding door of this. If you're Michigan and Ohio State, right? Are you gonna say, hey, what the heck, guys? Why are Maryland and Rutgers making the same amount of money from our deal as we are? When obviously, we're bringing the value. Same thing goes for, right, Texas and Vanderbilt, or, Alabama and Mississippi State, make up the schools, right? We can play this game all day. And I think that becomes the interesting dynamic of, do schools within other leagues push for this kind of structure? Because I think that, certainly, again, to your point, there are going to be schools at the lower end of the totem pole, in the ACC in particular. If you're Boston College or Wake Forest, are you ticked off about taking a haircut here? Probably. But it's better than the alternative and going and figuring it out on your own. So I think that, necessary evil, so to speak, I think, for a lot of those places. But I do think the ramifications of this and the way that the ACC is distributing revenue, I think, is really fascinating and makes for an interesting dynamic in, frankly, every other league in the country right now.
Yeah, and that was going to be my question was, do you see the potential of other member institutions from whether a power conference or maybe it's a mid-major following the same course that we saw with Florida State and with Clemson? But also you mentioned some of the other sports or some of the other schools and raising a stink about this, not even college football. And I realize it's all relative with the amount that football brings in as opposed to Olympic sports. But if I'm the coach or I'm an AD and I've got an Olympic program, Ben, that is known for historic success in that particular sport, I'm going through with a fine-tooth comb making sure that we're getting our fair share of revenue.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I do think that obviously this is going to create some more accounting headaches for a lot of people on campuses, right? There's going to be Olympic sports that say, make up a school, right? I'm just using it as a made-up example, but is Wake Forest's golf team going to get less resources now than it would have, notwithstanding the House settlement lingering over all of this? Yeah, maybe. That's entirely plausible. But again, I think the reality is this is better than the alternative, right? And I know this is kind of a oversimplification, but I do think that at this point right now, football is, I don't want to say it's the only thing that matters, because men's and women's basketball certainly has a lot of value too, and I think as we're getting into March, we've seen that, et cetera, et cetera. But if football is not in a Power 4 league making the money it needs to, other sports are going to go away, or the structure is going to change significantly in which they're not going to be supported in the same way. So I think that I feel for those Olympic sports and those coaches and players, like that they're, maybe not going to live the same lives that they have in the last, say, 5-10 years, 5-10 years into the future. But I do think, like, the reality is like, as long as your football team is sitting in that Power Four right now, and, those in the Big Ten and SEC certainly feel this way, and, to a little bit different degree, Big 12 and ACC, like, that's better than the alternative. And I think that's just kind of the stark realities of college sports right now.
We're talking to Ben Portnoy from the Sports Business Journal. I'm talking to him about the ACC settlement with Florida State and Clemson. I want to ask you about an outstanding article you have there. It's behind the paywall, but it's at the Sports Business Journal. It's entitled, What's in a Title? The Swift Evolution of College Football's General Manager. Is a great read. And we saw it firsthand here at the University of Alabama, where Courtney Morgan, he got off the plane with Kalen DeBoer the night that he flew into Tuscaloosa to take the Alabama job. And now we're seeing more and more naming of general managers. Kind of talk about the genesis of this article and talk about this evolution now of these general managers in college football.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. We kind of looked at this story. We were talking about it internally, like, okay, like, what are, like, new jobs in sports that are popping up? And I was like, well, the general manager's everywhere, but frankly, like, I'm kind of unclear on what these people actually do, right? Like, there's so many people that have got this title and it's, the reality is, it's like, it varies so much school to school on what the responsibilities are, like the sort of organizational flow chart and hierarchy of it. And so I think, for me, like, and with this story, I think I wanted to look at, like, okay, like, answer that question, right? Like, what do these guys do? And how does that differ from school to school? And I think it ranges a lot, right? Like, I think Courtney Morgan's a really good example, of sort of the way that these folks have been compensated, right? Like, he's on a, 3-year deal, or recently signed a 3-year deal that's going to pay him, north of $800,000 a year. Like, I think I was doing math and looking at some database numbers. Like, that's in the top 12% of what assistant coaches, period, were making in 2023-24. So, like, he's basically I think one of the examples I used in that story, too, is, like, Courtney Morgan, I think, is basically making about the same, or either just above or right at or about the same as Auburn's defensive coordinator. Like, the reality is like, schools are pouring money into these positions for the people that are at the high end of this. And so, again, I think it's an evolution to what these schools have to deal with, and assuming the House settlement goes through, like signing contracts, scouting, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think those things are being looked at from a little bit of a different perspective. And I think, frankly, it's a way to take some of the hats that head coaches have to wear now off of their plate. I think that, like, we've lived in a world, and I think Alabama fans, Nick Saban, right, is a great example, right? Nick Saban's probably the best college football coach of all time. I think that's pretty not really that arguable. But, Saban was a control freak and had his hands on everything. And I think when you look at the way that college football might be structured, say, even a year from now, 5 years from now, whatever it might be, like, you kind of, like, as a one-person head coach, like, you can't really do all of that, like, whether it's, handling contracts, scouting, coaching the actual team, right? Like, all of those things, like, you have to be able to divvy that up. And I think that the reason you're seeing things like a general manager pop up, or a front office staff, if you will, is because the coaches can't handle all of that. And, like, I look back at, like, the quote in the story from Andrew Luck, I spoke with at Stanford. He's got a little bit more of a unique setup where he's technically, like, over the football program, right? Like, he is sort of a true general manager in the sense of, like, the way it would work at the NFL level, to some degree, with some caveats, obviously. But, he said, he was like, college football has always kind of, centered on this quote unquote, like, cult of coach, right? Like, head coaches have been the face and the, the centerpiece and in charge of everything. And he said, he was like, and so I was curious how Coach Taylor, Troy Taylor at Stanford, would take this, because there's a lot of responsibility taken off his plate. And he was thrilled. So I think the reality is, again, like, there's only so much that one person can handle. And I think that these jobs are a way to, obviously take stuff off of the head coach's plate, but also to adapt to this world that we're living in now.
That has been It is 12:52, Jocks 94.5. If you missed any of our interviews today, Mike Griffith joined the show, Nick Kelly, Nathan King. You just heard Ben Portnoy. You can download the Three Man Front podcast, and you can catch up of all the interviews that we've had right here on Jocks 94.5. It's just an interesting day, to say the very least. As he mentioned, the CFP, Mac Rhodes, who is the athletics director at Baylor. He is now in charge of the CFP committee. He is the chairperson moving forward. Ward Manuel has gotten off, as he has rotated off, I should say, because that is the 3-year cycle in which guys come on and off. So interesting day, to say the very least, with the ACC news, CFP. We've got basketball tonight with Auburn and Texas A&M. Tomorrow night, a big game for Alabama as they try to right the ship against Florida. Still a conversation, Landrum, for Alabama if they can get a couple wins this week, which is going to be very, very difficult. But if they were, I think the conversation back with them possibly being a number 1 seed.
No, I mean, it's got to be. If you knock off Florida and Auburn in the same week, one at home, one on the road, yeah, you definitely have to be there. It's got to be a frog hair separating Alabama from 1 and a 2 seed. And I think more than anybody else, just because of how daunting their closing schedule has been, they've got a chance to make the biggest dent this week of any other teams in consideration, namely Houston and some others. But that's a huge game for Nate Oates and the Tide. And I think more than anything, though, Pat, it's more from a psychological standpoint where you don't want to be going into Nashville having lost 3 of your last 4 or whatever that number.
And it's so ironic, Landrum, because last year they lost 4 of their final 5 SEC games. Yeah. Now, I mean, and that included the first game in the tournament. So they lost, they went 4 out of 5. And so it was almost very similar to what they're going through this year, except this year the schedule, it's not as shocking.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, they're a good basketball team. I'm just saying, based on the way the league was last year.
Yeah, there's no way to hide this year.
No.
With the exception of maybe you get South Carolina, Georgia, but Florida, they found out that's not easy this year. There's just every night's going to be a test in the SEC. That's why tonight, for an Auburn team that's coming off clinching a regular season title in Lexington on Saturday, it does, just because of the team they're playing, where they're playing, it does make you wonder what kind of headspace this Auburn team is in. But as veteran as they are, and what Bruce Pearl has said about the makeup of this team all season, I think that you'll probably get a dialed-in Auburn team tonight. Now, it might not mean the difference in them winning or losing, but I think that you'll get a focused Auburn team, especially at Neville for Senior Day on Saturday.
There's no doubt about that. Other SEC games tonight around the Southeastern Conference, besides the Auburn Tigers taking on Texas A&M, you've got Georgia and South Carolina. That's a 5 o'clock tip-off, so we'll be here before you know it. LSU is at Kentucky, Texas at Mississippi State. And then the 8 o'clock game is Auburn and A&M. Pregame 7:30 here on Jocks 94.5. But at 9 o'clock tonight, you got to stay up late for this one, Langel.
Yep.
Arkansas and Vandy.
That's a game that I stay up late for every single year.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
I will be watching some of that game.
You want to join mine, and me and Ty are doing a late night FaceTime during the game tonight, Landrum. I'm sure we can squeeze you in if you want to.
I shower early,
enjoy.
So I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, Ty and I were texting early this morning, and Conrad's name came up in the conversation.
Really?
Yeah.
There's something between those two.
They have a bond.
And that was struck up in Dallas, right?
Actually, it was struck up.
When they went to the Leather Barker Bar.
Actually, it was.
It was love at first phone screen, Landrum. You know what they say.
It was way before that. Ty will be in Nashville next week.
Y'all shared an e-bike, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it was a tandem e-bike.
Yeah, tandem bike.
Yeah.
More than one seat.
Yes.
But they didn't use both seats. We continue live from Social Taco here in Homewood. Join us. Birthday cake is being cut. BB is being honored. You can honor BB as well. SocialTaco.bar for more information. Check out the menu before you get here because there's so many tasty things to try. Final hour on this Tuesday, live from Social Taco. It's three-man front, Landrum, Pat, Molly, and Conrad on your home for college basketball and more. Jocks 94.5.
It is 1 o'clock. Jocks 94.5. Pat, Molly, Landrum. We are live at Social Taco. Conrad Van Order, part of the show as well. We'll be here until 2 o'clock. Another great crowd. This was BB's birthday celebration today up here. It's fantastic. Peach
Is it
pie.
already over?
No, it's not over.
No, it's not over.
Okay, I didn't think
so. It's not
so.
over until Landrum leaves.
You were just talking about in the past tense. I was like, surely, knowing BB, she's going to keep the party going for a while.
I see that potential. Maybe with some of the members of this group.
A lot of dollar beer being consumed.
A lot of dollar beer. There was dollar beer being poured before, I think, technically the doors opened.
Pretty much. So the big news today, as we've talked to multiple guests about, is in regards to Florida State, Clemson, the ACC. They have decided to lay their arms down, and there has been a settlement in which now Florida State and Clemson is going to get more money than the other members of the Atlantic Coast Conference. We were just talking about this with Hastings during a commercial break. Think about this. North Carolina wanted to have the same thing happen. They wanted to be in line with Clemson and Florida State to get the hell out of Dodge, right? Well, guess what they did? They did not spend one single dime, Landrum, on legal fees. They stayed on the sideline, and they let everybody else battle it out, and then lo and behold, look what happens. North Carolina gets all the answers that they need without spending one single dime. And so at the end of the decade, if the Big Ten wants to add North Carolina or the SEC wants to add the school from Chapel Hill, then all of a sudden, boom, they can do it, and it's going to be extremely affordable.
They cut to the chase, right?
Very much so.
Right now, it does seem like ACC is just in survival mode, and let's plug this hole before another one appears, and we find ourselves back in a courtroom 4 years from right now. But given the landscape and where it does seem like the SEC, and I know what Greg Sankey has said about not looking to onboard any new members, know what the Big Ten has said. It seems like there was maybe no other options for North Carolina, or for Florida State or for Clemson, unless they wanted to explore the Big 12, and that was something that early on I think that they did not want to do.
Yeah, it was also a situation where it was very tangled because with ESPN's involvement with the ACC network and the SEC network, then it was a situation was, okay, let's say Florida State just wants to leave and maybe try to go to the SEC, or the SEC may be interested in a North Carolina or a Clemson or a Florida State, then where would ESPN get involved and say this is a conflict? We can't let this happen because you're going to take away from the ACC, and then all of a sudden you're going to have lawsuits from other ACC schools, and it would have been really ugly. So it got ugly for a little while, involved with lawyers, but as I said yesterday, once the Florida Supreme Court decided that they were going to back Florida State's claim against the ACC, I think that's to the point to where the ACC said we need to have a conversation and try to get this done with, and that's what they did.
So do we think that the dust is settled? I know from the ACC standpoint, but as far as college athletics, anything big that's on the back burner right now besides the College Football Playoff Committee discussions and the future of that contract? I can't think of anything else.
Well, you've got the House settlement. It's not official yet. So they're looking at April as perhaps the month in which that gets consummated. And so once that happens, then athletic departments and schools will know moving forward how much money they're going to have at their disposal to be able to pay their athletes. So that's the next big thing. We've got a big thing tonight on Jocks 94.5. Pregame show begins at 7:30 as the number 1 Auburn Tigers takes on the 22nd-ranked Texas A&M Fighting Aggies. Auburn is already the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament as they have been crowned the SEC regular season champions. Bruce Pearl met with the media yesterday down in Auburn and had this to say about tonight's opponent, Texas A&M.
In our last 7 games against Texas A&M, I think we're 2-5. Someone want to check that. And so obviously this has been a tough matchup for us as far as systems matching up. Just like last time we came in and said, gosh, we're 1 win away from this or that. There were a lot of things to talk about. And we were, obviously managed to check a lot of boxes on Saturday. But to this one here would be to go undefeated on the road would really be something in the SEC, and especially in this particular year. So, so again, 1 win away from our most SEC wins in our history, the most wins overall. There's a lot of things that are available, and so we know we got a tough matchup against a team that is as athletic and as deep as any team in our league. They play as hard as anybody in the league. They turn you over. They're the best offensive rebounding team in the league, one of the best in the country. They do a phenomenal job in transition and getting to the foul line, and so there are a lot of challenges to this matchup.
That is Bruce Pearl yesterday, and he was talking about Texas A&M. They're very good on the boards, Landrum. You've got a graduate senior guard in Wade Taylor. He's averaging 15 points a game. It's going to be an emotional night tonight as they honor the seniors in his final game there at Reed Arena. He has been the straw that stirs the drink for the Aggies this year, but unfortunately, over the course of the last 4 games, he has been extremely inconsistent. And look at the record of Texas A&M in the last 4 games. So,
yeah, this is one of those matchups that it's going to be physical. They're going to be tough. You're going to probably have some bruises when it's all said and done with the style of play that Texas A&M likes to play. But Buzz Williams, he will certainly have this team ready. And by evidence, you're already seeing the Vegas point line move. It moved from 5.5 this morning to 4.5 while we were on the air. Who knows where it goes tonight. But if you're Auburn, you look at it like, what's different? You've been playing an SEC schedule. You got 2 games left in the regular season. Go handle your business, and you got a chance to run an undefeated record on the road in conference play this year, which I think looking back on it, if it's not impressive enough for you now, it will be several years from now.
Oh, there's no doubt. No question. More Bruce Pearl from yesterday as he was asked about maybe letting off the gas now that they're SEC champions.
Bruce, with a game like this, you're not going to say that you're not playing for anything, but with the SEC clinch, is it kind of a chance to try something?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely. Great question, but absolutely not. We have got a lot to play for. We're trying to be a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. The possibility of being undefeated on the road this year is incredible. We've never beaten Alabama and Kentucky on the road in the same year. There's a lot to play for, and this will be A&M will be one of the more physical teams that we've played against. 2 of the most physical teams we played against, or let's just say 3. Duke, Florida, 2 losses, and then Tennessee was a close game. And those would be, I think, the top 3 most physical teams we played against. So, whether physicality, you could say bothers us, or I listed 2 or 3 teams that are all 1 and 2 seeds in the NCAA tournament. So, whether it's physicality or just great teams, I can't tell you which.
That was Bruce Pearl yesterday as his team gets ready for tonight's game against the fighting Texas Aggies. Pre-game, 7:30 right here on Jocks 94.5. Tip-off is at 8 o'clock.
They're going to wear their Fear of God uniforms?
Oh, my goodness. Surely they won't, right?
Or do we call those the Dear God uniforms?
Man.
I think that's a better name. You think, Molly, go with the Dear God? Dear God, what are you wearing?
But yeah, they're pretty ugly.
For those of you who have not seen the Adidas version, you call it a jersey or a uniform. It's Fear of God, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Their line that they break out for different teams who have contracts with them, we have not been impressed.
Now, I will say this. Nebraska's did not look bad to me.
I still don't like them, though.
But they weren't like
Texas A&M bad, but they were bad.
It was the mannequins that were misleading me with the full burqa look.
Yes.
So that's what bothered you the most?
Well, it was different. I guess it would be if you watched. I don't know where you would be watching.
And think about this, and for you uniform geeks out there,
which I am,
this is the final couple months that you will ever see Auburn athletics wear Under Armour. It will be Nike starting next year for all sports.
That's right.
So if you don't own an Auburn basketball jersey,
Auburn's finally on equal playing field with all this Nike apparel.
I always thought Auburn had great, I'm going to use a soccer term, kits.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the football uniform, the all whites, is as clean as they get in college football. I love the blue Auburn basketball jerseys. The whole, I mean, that's.
The orange one looked good, too. They don't wear that anymore, though.
Yeah.
The orange with the navy blue numbers outlined in white. No, I'm with you, though. It's a good look. I don't know about the white face mask, though. I know people like it. Maybe it's just because,
you don't like it?
Well, it seems like every time
they don't win.
Well, that's because you've had Brian Harsin and Hugh Freeze coaching there. Maybe it has nothing to do with the face mask. It probably doesn't, but I think the white stormtrooper look with the traditional Navy face mask is just fine.
Going back to the Fear of God uniforms, Landrum, I'm looking at a very nice trench coat on their website that I think would look great in your wardrobe.
Really?
If you're looking to expand, since I know Perry Ellis wasn't good enough for you.
How much is it?
Perry keeps sending me texts.
It's only $2,600, Molly.
Oh, okay. That's not
$2,600?
Yes.
What?
It's a trench coat.
Dollars?
Yes, dollars.
Dollars?
It's in Canadian dollars.
Well, that makes it better, I guess.
Are you in the market for a trench coat?
No.
Did your London fog trench coat, did that kind of go away?
But if I see a trench coat that catches my eye, I've been prone to walk into a store and buy it without trying it on.
Okay. Well, courtesy
So many
GMC
things
and
you can do with
Trustful.
a trench coat.
Well, you can. One thing's for sure, you can head to Trustful and you can check out the latest and best deals at courtesy GMC in Trustful, right off of I-459 exit 32. It's on Edwards Lake Road. You know, I've been telling you about the wonderful AT4X truck. There's only 2 left right now. Only 2 left on the lot. They have absolutely been going left and right off the lot, and they have just done an incredible job. SLTs on the lot, $13,000 off. Huge month in February there at Courtesy GMC. Number 2 in the zone out of over 60 dealers in percentage to objective. That is absolutely unbelievable. They do what so many want to do on a daily basis, but Courtesy does it every single day, and that is taking care of the customer with the best deals possible. Go by and see them. That is Courtesy GMC and Trustful. Visit their online inventory at courtesybirmingham.com.
That guy's got questions. We've got answers. Pat Ponders, 3-man front. We do it next. .116, welcome back into Social Taco here on this Taco Tuesday. When else, right? Landrum, Pat, Molly, Conrad hanging out. Any portion of the show, you can always find it there at jocksfm.com in the 3-Man Front podcast. And we appreciate you tuning in, whether it's on the Ump in North Alabama and Huntsville, the surrounding area on Jocks 740 there in Montgomery, or if you're listening on the Jocks 94.5 app or watching us on YouTube TV, on Jocks TV, we certainly appreciate that. 5 questions. He writes them every day. We try to answer. This is Pat Ponders.
Brought to you by Courtesy GMC in Trussville. Visit their online inventory at courtesybirmingham.com. All right, question number 1. It is now official, but Florida State and Clemson, they have settled their lawsuit with the ACC. So who won, in your opinion?
I think that Florida State and Clemson won because they got a better deal seemingly than they had before, and it was those two that wanted to force the ACC's hand, and it seems that they have done so. So I would say point Clemson, point Florida State, 0s for the ACC.
I would say we won because we don't have to talk about it anymore.
That's the right answer.
There's some truth to that.
But, yes, also, if we have to pick a side between the ACC and the schools, definitely think it's FSU and Clemson because now, they can kind of do whatever they want. If things get better, they can stick around until the end of the media rights deal, and if they really want to pony up, that they have a clear exit path in 4 or 5 years.
All right, question number 2. A month ago, the Mavericks traded Luka to the Lakers. Yesterday, Dallas announced that season tickets will go up on average 8.61% next season, and the increase is due to the ongoing investments in the team and fan engagement.
Oh, boy.
How would you describe your feeling if you were a Mavericks season ticket holder this morning?
Oh. Well, you pair that with the news that we got. I don't know if it was late last night or earlier this morning, but Kyrie Irving tore his ACL last night, or in their game yesterday. So they've now lost their 2 best players, and they're raising ticket prices.
And you're a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Ooh,
Ouch.
That might be the worst part of all. Yeah, if I'm a Mavericks fan, I am absolutely livid. I mean...
Yeah, I'm on an address.
Oh, yeah.
Where's his physical address?
Yeah, I mean...
Where does he live? Who's responsible?
Look at what's happened here this year, and I saw this. Somebody brought this up the other day on social media, but... for any NBA fans out there, the Mavericks also had Jalen Brunson 2 or 3 years ago and refused to sign him to a big deal. He then goes to the Knicks, and he's been an absolute superstar for them. So that's 2 superstars that you've let walk out. Now your best player currently on your roster is injured, and there's now a belief with Kyrie out that AD's not going to play the rest of the year either. So, yeah, if I'm a Mavericks fan, I am pitchforks outside the arena.
Yeah.
I'm boycotting. I'm not going to games.
No.
No.
I think there'll be a lot of people. What Molly said.
I'm not spending any more money.
I'm done.
Mm-mm.
I'm trading in my starter jacket.
I'll pull for the Rockets.
Hey, Rockets are pretty good.
OKC.
Yeah.
It's right up the road.
I'll pull for the Spurs.
That's blasphemy right there. All right, question number 3. You're an NFL general manager, and you can only bring in one of these available quarterbacks into your camp for either a starter role or a backup. Who do you take a flyer on? Are you ready? I'm going to give you the 3 options.
Oh, no.
These are going to be great.
Daniel Jones.
No.
Molly.
Wait, Molly.
Gosh, she always does this.
Gardner Minshew. Zach Wilson.
Oh, I think it's Gardner Minshew by a country mile.
Really?
Yes, certainly over Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Certainly over Zach Wilson. Daniel Jones, I mean, you're twisting my arm either way on that one, but I'm probably gonna roll with Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Mustache. Does he still have the mustache?
Let's see.
No, but he's a solid backup.
Yeah, he's fine.
And when he was forced into a starting role,
He's still got the stash.
And he's probably the cheapest out of those 3 options.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, my no to Daniel Jones.
By the way,
was fine.
Zach Wilson is how's the love life going with Zach?
But you get Zach Wilson's mom coming to the games.
Yeah.
It's the other moms you should be worried about.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm going to be honest, Pat. Until you just brought that up, I kind of forgot Zach Wilson was a person.
I kind of did too.
I had kind of forgot that he was still a quarterback in the NFL.
Does he still have an interest in Cougars?
I don't think you grow out of that one. Well, eventually, then it has to flip at some point, but, you know.
Oh, he's engaged. And she looks too young.
Wait. Go back.
So what's the male version, Conrad, of a cougar?
Oh, like what would we call the male version of it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is a puma more masculine?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Molly's looking it up. Which is it, Molly?
A panther?
A manther.
A manther?
That doesn't sound right. A manther? Is that a thing?
It says a middle-aged man who dates much younger women. Oh, Bill Belichick. Well,
no, that's something else.
He's a little older than middle.
That's
yeah.
something else.
That's a little bit different.
Yeah, also, no more Hard Knocks with Chapel
Don't
Bill.
even. I'm so upset about that.
So what would you call the Ole Miss dad?
Oh my gosh.
Is that a manther?
That's what we call hottie naughty right there, Pat.
Hottie naughty.
I see a T-shirt opportunity there.
Mm-hmm. Hottie naughty. Come to the sip. Hashtag juice.
All right, question number 4.
Salt life.
If you could have any NFL player's skills set for one day, which one would you choose?
Did you say NFL?
Yes.
Just because I've seen him play, I'd say Aaron Rodgers.
His arm, his longevity, you only got it for a day.
Yeah, well, I just think it'd be fascinating to be in his brain for a day. But also, if that particular day we were not playing football, he's actually a really good golfer. So
Okay.
I would enjoy going and having a nice round where I scored well on a nice golf course. Just trying to think outside the box there.
See, I'd probably pick like a Derrick Henry or a Saquon, just like truck through people.
That's a good one.
I think it'd be kind of fun.
Like the grocery store?
Yeah. Move out my way.
See, that's why I was going to pick Tyreek, because I'd just go and race everybody. I just walk up to, hey, you want to go race real quick? And I just blow everybody away with how fast I was, and then I'd go home to my 12 children.
I was about to say, I thought that you just wanted the opportunity to father a bunch of kids by different women.
No, I'm going to leave before bath time.
Keep
at
things
night.
spicy.
No, I want the speed.
All right, fifth and final question of today's Pat Ponders, brought to you by courtesy GMC. Name a sport you just can't understand the appeal of.
To play, to watch, just either.
Just whatever definition you want to fill in the blank, but just what sport that you just don't understand the appeal of.
See, for me, and I have made this point a lot on the show, it's just fighting. I have never liked fighting.
Boxing, MMA,
Boxing,
any
it doesn't
of that.
matter. I do not like it.
Okay.
Never have. I also don't do well with like broken bones and blood and stuff like that. Nah, I can't do it.
Yeah, that's not going to work for you.
No. Never got into it.
See, okay, I understand the appeal of it, but the fact that soccer is the biggest sport in the world, and I understand, I guess, why, because it's simple to play and it's accessible a lot of places, but yeah, the fact that soccer is the biggest sport in the world, I'll be honest, I've never understood the appeal of that over football, like American football, personally.
I got to be careful here.
Why? Why do you have to be careful?
Was this me? Well, me personally, NASCAR. I don't.
That's a good one. I'm with you, Landrum.
Watching cars go round and round, it's just never
Another
been my
left
thing.
turn.
Well, and I know that there are people who are into it, and I have friends that are big into NASCAR, and they enjoy following it. It's just never been my cup of tea. I enjoy going to the event, but more of just the social aspect of the event in the event, and never worrying about or wondering what point where cars were in particular point in the race.
Great
Even
people
if
watching.
I watched the very end, didn't really matter.
See, I've always said that instead of watching them go 500 miles in a circle, like drive 500 miles on the interstate somewhere. Like Cannonball Run.
Yeah, can we shut down 65?
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Like from the beach.
Both sides of it?
From like to the beach to Nashville. Who gets there?
They're going really fast, so it wouldn't be shut down long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so Landrum, have you ever watched F1? Because I'm with you on NASCAR, but the few times I've seen like an F1 race, that is, in my opinion, much more interesting. Because
No, I've
it's
never
more-
watched F1, but I'll try it.
It's more weave. I don't know. It's
More in and out,
I'm with you, Conrad.
more position changes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. We'll try it. And I'm not hating on NASCAR. It's just I didn't want to give you curling, which I don't really see the point in that either. But it's not on near as much as NASCAR.
What's the difference in curling and shuffleboard or whatever? Shuffleball, whatever it's called.
Shuffleboard. You don't get to go down and scrub the board as your.
Well, I mean, I know. I just
disc
I
is.
feel like
yeah.
they're very similar.
Shuffleboard is played on a deck of a ship, where curling is played in a gym or
Do you
arena.
have to be older to play shuffleboard?
No.
I feel like the people I've ever seen play it are older, Landrum. Yeah.
I know. Feels like
it's all the retired
Rockports
curlers.
and Sandsabelts, which I don't have a problem with. Very comfortable pants and cushiony shoe.
That is today's Pat Ponders, brought to you by Courtesy GMC in Trussville. Go by and see them in person, right off of I-459, exit 32 in Trussville.
Oh, we see good, we see bad. I have seen something bad today,
Oh, boy.
and I will share it. The worst thing I've seen is next.
It is 1:32, Jocks 94.5. 30 more minutes to go before the Paul Feinbaum Show right here on Jocks 94.5. A reminder, tonight, the Auburn Tigers on the road taking on the Texas Fighting Aggies. Reed Arena will be the site. 7:30 pregame, 8 o'clock first tip right here on Jocks 94.5.
Well, our friends at Dobbs Ford on Parkway East want to remind you that if you are in the market for, let's say, an F-150, a Bronco Sport, a Mustang, an Explorer, an Escape, they've got them there at Dobbs Ford. Alabama's largest showroom selection, as I mentioned, right there on Parkway East. In Metro Birmingham, you can check them out, and with that great selection, you're going to get a absolutely salt-of-the-earth sales staff. It starts with the Goshens, Rachel and Joey Goshen, the managing partner, husband and wife. Their son Austin heads up the sales team, but it's everybody there at Dobbs Ford. You're going to get that commitment to excellence. You're going to get total transparency throughout the whole process. There's going to be a no-hassle approach, and they will beat any competitor's price. Go to DobbsFordBirmingham.com. DobbsFordBirmingham.com. Make sure you tell them Landrum from Jocks 94.5 sent you, and they will be sure to take care of you. DobbsFordBirmingham.com. Once again, tell them Landrum from Jocks 94.5 sent you.
Well, I understand that both Conrad and Landrum, I think Landrum will go first, they have found some things that have been very awful for them to look at. This is what we call the worst thing I've seen.
All right, guys, I don't know how I missed this one, but college baseball, we have college baseball going on, and I'll usually catch one of these box scores, but I did not see it until this morning. But it is definitely the worst thing I've seen as far as a box score goes. The Columbia Lions baseball team, Ivy League, they took on 11th-ranked Oregon this past weekend.
It's Big Ten baseball.
That's some Big Ten baseball. There was a sweep that was completed by Oregon. They got them 4 wins out of the series over Columbia. One of the scores, though, in the first game of a doubleheader on Saturday, 35-1.
Oh, boy.
35-1. Oregon beats Columbia in baseball. Columbia dropped to 1-6 on the season, which just started last month. Oregon won the season opener or the series opener on Friday by a score of 20-11. They took game 2 of Saturday's doubleheader 8-3, and then they won Sunday's finale 7-0. So if you're keeping track, that would be 67 runs scored by Oregon, and they surrendered a total of 15.
Wow.
Sounds like an enjoyable weekend if you play Ducks baseball. That is the worst thing that I have seen. How about you, Conrad?
Well, Landrum, mine is, it's drastically different than the one that you found. Mine has nothing to do with sports at all, but it does have with somebody who obviously was very wealthy and is now a little less wealthy for a very bizarre reason. So I think we all are familiar. You at least know, all right, so Pokemon cards are pretty popular. They sell for a lot of money. They're collector's items now, things like that. So what if I told you that somebody spent $88,000 not on a Pokemon card, but on a Cheeto that was shaped like a Pokemon?
How much?
What?
How much?
Yes, $88,000. So somebody found a Flamin' Hot Cheeto. Maybe that drove the price up because it's the Flamin' Hot. But it was a Flamin' Hot Cheeto in the shape of a Charizard Pokemon, and it sold at auction for $88,000.
Can you spell Charizard? What?
Charizard. According to this report, Charizard is among the original and most popular Pokemon in the franchise. And according to a report, so this Cheeto was found like 4 or 5 years ago, and it just now went to auction. So someone has been preserving this Cheeto that looks like the popular Pokemon, It was then acquired by
wow.
the memorabilia site Arena Club in November of last year, and it was then taken to auction here last week. The bidding started out at $275 on February the 11th, but by the end of it, the bidding had gone up, and so right under $88,000, it was actually $87,840 that someone paid for a Cheeto, a singular Cheeto, like the snack, that is shaped like a Pokemon.
Imagine
Cheetos-ard.
You're the financial guy of the person who bought this, and they call you and they go, "Hey, what is it this time?"
You're never going to believe
never
what I
gonna
found.
believe the Cheeto that I found in the bag this morning.
What if
How
I
does that
told you?
even-
What if I told you though that is not the most expensive Cheeto that's ever been purchased?
What?
So back in 2017, I know this is a sensitive subject for a lot of us, but Harambe. Do you remember Harambe?
Oh, yeah.
The gorilla? So somebody
peace.
found in 2017 a regular Cheeto, not a Flamin' Hot, a regular Cheeto that had a striking resemblance to the slain gorilla Harambe, and it sold for over $90,000 on eBay.
Oh, my goodness.
So unfortunately, this is only the second most expensive Cheeto to ever be sold, and that is just unfortunate that that is the case. I would like to see the bank account of the person that bought that Cheeto. They must be doing pretty well in life.
And by the way, going back to college baseball, did you realize the Nebraska Cornhuskers set a record in 1999 by defeating Chicago State in a baseball game?
I did not know that.
You know what the final score
You
was?
did not know that.
No, I wasn't alive yet. What was final score?
Doesn't matter. That's not an excuse. 50-3.
That's awesome. Go Big Red. Beat down.
Go Big Red. Let's stand on the dugout and do our routine.
That's what we would do.
Did you do baseball games?
Baseball and softball.
But there was did you do basketball too?
Yeah, we did all of it.
All of it?
Mhm.
I didn't know if there was a different crew that handled other sports.
Well, we did baseball, softball, cheer did volleyball. But they didn't do baseball, softball, and we didn't do volleyball. That was like our one unique thing.
Wait, y'all
But I love
danced at the baseball games?
Sure did. On the dugout.
They got on the dugout. They threw the
Okay.
T-shirts.
Yep. Different T-shirts for different plays. It was fun.
I don't think we had that at Alabama. Got to step their game up.
Yeah.
Well, that's the worst thing I've seen. We continue live from Social Taco in Homewood. More to get to here on this Tuesday edition of Three Man Front in Jocks 94.5.
It is 1:43, Jocks 94.5, 17 minutes away from the Paul Feinbaum Show right here on Jocks 94.5. I was just perusing Jerry Palm's latest bracketology. Boy, this would be an interesting matchup. How about the number 2 seed, the Alabama Crimson Tide, being placed in Raleigh, North Carolina, taking on the University of South Alabama Jaguars.
Oh, interesting.
That would bring back a lot of memories of Ronnie Arrow, who was the head basketball coach of the South Alabama Jags, beating the Alabama Crimson Tide there at the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia. Wouldn't that be something? Alabama and South Alabama.
And Alabama and South Alabama, did they not play, was it the Mitchell Center just a couple of years ago, early part of the season?
They may have.
I felt like they did.
Can't recall that. According to Jerry Palm, obviously Auburn is the overall number 1 seed. They would play the winner of Illinois and New Mexico.
Ooh.
And in that same portion of the bracket, you would have Clemson, Liberty, Texas Tech, and High Point. High Point played UAB earlier this season. Tennessee would go out west. They would play Nebraska, Omaha.
Okay. The Mavs.
And then the winner of that would get BYU, UConn.
Oh.
Meanwhile, Houston would be number 1 seed in the Midwest. They would play Bryant. And then Houston would play the winner of Vandy and Gonzaga.
Ooh.
That's a kind of a salty matchup.
I like that.
Between those two. So, last 4 in, according to Jerry Palm, Xavier, Baylor, Boise State, Arkansas is still in. Last 4 out, I'm sorry, Molly, Nebraska, North Carolina, Ohio State, and Cincinnati.
Hey, we're in the same grouping of North Carolina. That's, blue blood. That's kind of cool.
So, as of right now, he has got Alabama is the overall number 1, number 2 seed. That makes sense.
Who would Auburn be?
Auburn would be playing. They're the number 1 overall.
You said
seed.
New Mexico and
the winner of Illinois and New Mexico.
Interesting.
This will change 50 million times.
Yeah.
Before a week from Sunday, but it is interesting to see the likes of Alabama and South Alabama potentially playing. I think Conrad would have serious stomach issues that day.
No, not at all. I don't get nervous.
Yeah.
All right.
Text line is open.
Courtesy
205.
GMC brings us that text line each and every day.
834-9450. And Johnny chiming in and saying, Arkansas has pictures of Jerry Palm doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. I don't think so. He's valuing Arkansas like everyone else, just waiting for them to lose another game. Presumably tonight. They play, is it Vanderbilt at 9 o'clock?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the game we're staying up late for, Landrum.
Yes, that's right.
You guys are going to FaceTime each other and watch the game.
That's right, with Ty.
With Ty,
yeah. It's pregame. Mercedes, does UAB still have a chance to get into the tournament?
Yes.
Yes, they can win their tournament. Seeding still being determined this week, by the way, UAB. Senior night at home at Bartow, coming up Thursday versus FAU. You can hear the game on Jocks 2, 100.5. Andrew says that Don, who is here in the building, in case you cannot hear him, sounds like he has a built-in megaphone in his mouth.
He's just really passionate about tacos and 3-man front.
He certainly is. And we're appreciative of Don. FJF says he was going to try to make it down here today for BB's birthday, but he's not going to be able to make it. So we all wish her a happy birthday from Fat Joe and friends. Thank you, Fat Joe. FYI, another listener says there are also shuffleboard tables. Some cabins you rent will have one. We have one in our house.
So it's like a pinball machine, but like shuffleboard, or like
it's shuffleboard, but you're not using the stick. You're just using your hand, and it's a tabletop.
I mean, the stick's part of the appeal to me if I'm going to play.
Well, I think you're talking about a different game now. Anyways, Drake asked, better player, Devontae Adams or Deebo Samuel?
Devontae Adams. He's one of the best to ever do it.
All right, this is another question for you, Conrad. Back to prior conversation. If Bucky left Samford, would Samford look to hire someone from an Alabama high school again? Scott Ware at Hoover has led the Bucs to 3 consecutive state titles and a legitimate claim to a national title this season.
I think that would be an excellent, at least a conversation worth having if you're Samford. It's clearly worked out very well for you now, and Bucky had a heck of a career there at Mountain Brook. So,
if you're missing this, there was a early coaching hot board candidate list at Florida State that was put out, and it was put out by who was it, Goodman?
Yes.
And 2 of the names on the list, Bucky McMillan of Samford and also UAB's Andy Kennedy. I'm trying to think other notables. You have Hodgson, former Nate Oates assistant, who's currently at Arkansas State. Sam Cassell, who is an assistant in the NBA. You have a Duke assistant, who I cannot recall his name, is up for the job. But Andy Kennedy and Bucky McMillan, 2 of the bigger names there in Tallahassee, potentially to replace Leonard Hamilton. Josh says that Conrad is crossing his fingers. That
to what, have to relocate?
Bucky gets the hell out of Alabama. That's what Josh said.
Could do wonders for my marriage.
Josh also adds that the European rally car racing makes NASCAR look like dry paint. Recommend looking up highlights. Evan says they should take Landrum on a reunion tour and call it Twisted Placenta. If you missed the D. Snyder conversation we had with Pat. And Jason says that D will eat Paul's placenta.
Oh, my goodness.
Mike, sorry we missed this earlier. Mike in Shreveport said, if you can, please tell Nick, we had Nick Kelly on, who covers the Crimson Tide, that he went to the doctor after hearing him talk a few weeks ago and thankfully got a good report. So thank you, Nick. So, Nick, I'm sure you're still listening, but we appreciate you letting us know that so we can pass along.
Yeah, Nick shared his story about him finding out earlier about an issue, testicular, and we had, obviously, the story come out Friday about Hugh Freeze and his prostate cancer diagnosis. So for those men that are listening to the show, it's very important to be checked out yearly. Make sure you have that PSA done.
Come up with a name, an older man who dates younger women. This texter says they are called Rich.
Yeah.
Or Bill Belichick.
Yeah, or Bill.
And he is rich.
Chapel Bill.
Bama Hater apparently was blasting you on Feinbaum yesterday, Pat.
Good. I hope he said my name right.
Posey texting in, and this was said tongue-in-cheek, going back to the bill that was not passed, that was brought up by Senator Tuberville for men and women's sports. Posey says should not be a men's and women's division, combine them all, shaking my head. Yeah. Cliff says it's Mardi Gras today. Molly and Landrum, happy Mardi Gras.
Oh, thank you.
It's Fat Tuesday.
It is.
Why didn't they say happy Mardi Gras to me and Conrad?
Because they know about your beliefs. Your anti-Mardi Gras stance.
People are tired of me and Pat after last week. Landrum wasn't here, and
what y'all do?
People just got tired.
Besides you not being able to change a tire. So disappointed.
I didn't have a spare tire, which is a problem in its own right that I should have made sure to take care of. But
okay,
I didn't have a spare tire to even
that.
change.
Steve from Tuscaloosa. Bumper music request Van Halen's Dance the Night Away.
Okay. Mark that down for tomorrow.
And FYI, Molly, please be aware of the South Carolina wildfires for your bachelorette party this weekend.
I actually did see that they were having.
Have you canceled? Are you not going now?
No. But yes, thank you for that. We will keep an eye out.
Are you staying in a resort or are we camping out?
We're camping out.
Are we glamping?
Yeah, we're glamping. Yeah.
What is glamping?
Got the s'mores covered.
Fancy camping.
What is fancy camping? Like in an RV or something?
Glamorous camping.
Glamorous, yeah, glamping.
I'm not going to lie to you. That's the way I would go.
That's the way to go, yeah, glamping.
We are so back.
Cardinals spring training baseball going on right now as Pat Smith watches a shot by a player you've never heard of go over the right field wall. You guys are so bad.
Oh, Koperniak.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah, Koperniak.
Yeah, we all know him.
Up 5-0 over the Mets.
God, if you guys could do that for 162 games.
That would be a record.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
That would be pretty
Would be
incredible.
something, wouldn't it?
That would be a record.
Let's see if I can read any of these. I've got my dirty stash over here. Oh, wow. We've got the guy that puts in all the big money on the betting slips.
Oh, is this Parlay Pete?
Yeah, but he doesn't go by Parlay Pete. It's like Double Down. No, it's I forget what his name is. Wow. He won $818. It was a 8-team parlay.
Oh.
Wow.
Was it all against the money line?
Yep. By the way, he had Alabama +6. He had Auburn -3. Not too bad.
No, 18 parlay, that's tough.
What's the largest parlay you've ever played, Landrum?
Largest parlay? Like number of teams?
Played. Not one, played.
Played 12 team.
Wow. Okay.
What was that bet? $5 to win $1 million or something?
It was a lot. No, yeah, it was crazy odds. My cousin, first weekend of college football season, 3 years ago, had like one of those crazy ones, and he had put $5 in, and it was the FSU LSU opening weekend game, and the craziness that happened at the end.
Mm-hmm.
He lost the parlay by 1 point.
Oh.
And would have landed him like $7,000-8,000. You know those feelings. It's chump change for you. We appreciate all of you joining us here at Social Taco in Homewood. Happy birthday to BB. All of the portions of the show can be found at the Three Man Front podcast at JocksFM.com. One-time enemy of D. Snyder.
Yes.
But the source when it comes to who's going to be fired next, Paul Feinbaum, the Paul Feinbaum Show.